Welcome back to Anime Realm. This is my recap for the anime I'm a Noble on the Brink of Ruin. If you enjoy my recaps, please think about subscribing.
There was a middle-aged commoner that suddenly finds himself reincarnated into the body of a young noble from a house teetering on the brink of collapse. And with no choice but to adapt, he must work tirelessly to save his new family from ruin. It all begins when this unsuspecting man opens his eyes for the first time in the body of Liam Hamilton, a young noble. As he sits at the dinner table during a lavish party, he's utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend how he ended up there when he was just sipping on an energy drink at a bar after a long day at work. Looking around, he stumbles upon a mirror and is horrified to see a child's face staring back at him. The realization strikes like lightning, and he lets out an ear-piercing scream, drawing the attention of everyone in the room, including his stern father, the head of the Hamilton family. Mr. Hamilton, visibly annoyed and embarrassed by Liam's outburst, chastises him harshly. He reminds Liam that despite being the fifth son and the least significant among his siblings, he is still a member of the esteemed Hamilton family and must act with the dignity of a noble at all times. Liam remains silent, utterly lost and clueless about the man berating him in the bizarre situation he's in. The maid beside him, mistaking his confusion for sadness over his father's scolding, tries to comfort him. She remarks that he should be grateful his father is in a good mood today because on another day, things could have been much worse. She then casually mentions the reason for the Count's rare cheer. He finally has a daughter after being blessed with a string of sons, and this party is a celebration of her birthday. As the pieces start falling into place, Liam slowly begins to understand that he has somehow been thrust into the role of a noble son. Assuming it's just an incredibly vivid and peculiar dream, he resolves to sleep it off, confident he'll wake up back in his old life. But when morning comes, he wakes up in the same child's body, so the realization hits him that this isn't a dream, this is his new reality. Liam has no clue why he's been thrust into this bizarre situation, but with no other choice, he begins to accept his new reality and decides to go along with it. Dressing in the fine clothes of the young noble boy he now inhabits, Liam sets out to explore his surroundings. First on his agenda is checking out the balcony for a better view of the Hamilton estate, and as he steps onto the balcony, he is amazed by the vast expanse of land surrounding the mansion, which the maid proudly informs him all belong to the Hamilton family. While Liam is still figuring out how to adjust to this strange life, his older brother Bruno summons him for a serious conversation about their newborn sister. This is Bruno, the fourth son of the Hamilton family, and he seems to already have grand plans for their baby sister's future. He confidently declares that she must grow up to be beautiful so that she can marry into the royal family, a move he believes is the only way to secure the Hamilton family's future. Bruno then goes on to explain the dire situation the family faces. The Hamiltons are teetering on the brink of losing their noble status, having failed to achieve anything noteworthy for 3 generations. Their father, the current head of the family, represents the 3rd generation, and once he retires, leadership will pass to one of the 4th generation children. Bruno is convinced they won't achieve anything significant by then, which would result in the Hamiltons being demoted to commoners. Determined to prevent this, Bruno sees their sister's potential marriage as a golden opportunity to save their legacy. Despite being only 13, a mere year older than Liam, Bruno carries himself with a maturity far beyond his age, and he encourages Liam to start thinking about the family's future as well. Then their conversation is cut short when a tutor enters the room to begin a lesson on the basics of magic. Upon learning that he's about to study magic, Liam can barely contain his excitement. He leaps from his seat, drawing a mix of embarrassment and confusion from Bruno, who is taken aback by his brother's enthusiasm. Trying to temper Liam's expectations, Bruno warns him that only 1 in 100 people possesses the natural talent required to excel in magic, making the odds of success slim. However, Liam remains determined because he never had this chance in his past life, so he focuses intently, eager to learn. After class, Liam rushes to the maid, insisting she take him to the library. Following her lead, he eagerly begins searching for books on magic. His eyes land on a book titled Novice Fire Magic. Without hesitation, he flips through its pages and follows the steps for casting a basic fire spell. Concentrating, he manages to ignite a small flame on his index finger. The maid, wide-eyed with amazement, praises the young master for his ability to cast fire magic on his first try. Eager to expand his knowledge, Liam visits his father's office to request access to Grimoire's spellbooks from the library. His father, barely glancing up from his work, dismissively grants permission, showing little interest in his fifth son's pursuits. But with his father's approval, Liam wastes no time, gathering books and immersing himself in their contents, and before long, he masters a fire spell called Flame Cutter. And with just 1 month of rigorous practice, Liam successfully masters the flame cutter spell without using a grimoire. Proud of his progress, he shows off his newfound skill to Bruno, who is stunned that his younger brother learned the spell so quickly on his own. Feeling a surge of sibling rivalry, Bruno grabs Liam's grimoire, determined to uncover a shortcut to match Liam's skill, but his attempts don't bear fruit. Realizing the truth, Bruno admits that Liam's affinity for magic is remarkable, so he encourages his younger brother to continue his studies, predicting that Liam's talent will bring him fame and status. However, Bruno also notes that Liam's growing brilliance might overshadow the rest of the Hamilton family, and he curiously asks if Liam's dedication is part of a plan to become the next head of the household. But Liam reassures him, explaining that he studies magic simply as a hobby and has no intention of competing for the throne, especially not against their eldest brother Albrecht. After that, Liam continues his magical journey, mastering every novice fire spell in the book, so he sets his sights on the next target, the novice ice spells. Liam's father then approaches him, having heard the buzz about his newfound magic abilities. Finally seeing some potential in his fifth son, Mr. Hamilton decides to take an interest, though with a hefty dose of skepticism. He then skeptically asks Liam to show his abilities, and Liam responds by freezing a book using his new ice magic. Mr. Hamilton is unimpressed and dismissively asks if that's the best Liam can do. But Liam explains that he's just started learning ice magic, and to prove himself further, he reveals that he mastered every novice fire spell in just 1 month. This revelation changes everything because Mr. Hamilton's stern demeanor melts into laughter, declaring that the heavens must finally be smiling on the Hamilton family. He encourages Liam to continue his studies, assuring him that more grimoires will be provided if needed. And for the first time, Liam feels genuinely supported by his father, and the encouragement ignites a stronger desire to grow his abilities. Later, as Liam heads to the woods to train, he notices one of the butlers whispering to his father about some bad news. Unaware of the situation, Liam continues to the forest, where he encounters a man in a white coat resting under a tree. The man casually asks if Liam is one of the Hamilton sons, and when Liam confirms, the man cryptically tells him to capture him, but when he sees Liam doesn't know what the hell he is talking about, he immediately dismisses his own comment. Changing the subject, the man inquires about Liam's grimoire, and when he learns that Liam is practicing novice magic, he offers to teach him something more advanced, and he immediately casts 5 different spells at once. Liam gets intrigued and eagerly accepts, and the man, impressed by Liam's lack of typical noble arrogance, agrees to teach him some tricks. He then starts with simultaneous spell casting, guiding Liam on how to create magic circles with both hands. Liam then manages to cast fire spells from each hand, and the man pushes him further, introducing the concept of casting 3 magic circles at once. But while Liam masters the technique, his magical reserves fall short of sustaining the spell. But despite this, the man is awestruck by Liam's raw talent and casually mentions his own ability to cast up to 16 spells simultaneously. But unfortunately, the man's time is limited, and he regrets not being able to teach Liam more. And as a parting gift, he hands Liam a ring, calling it Magicpedia, an artifact containing the knowledge of hundreds of grimoires worth of magic. Then as Liam slips the ring onto his finger, a flood of magical knowledge invades his mind, filling his thoughts with hundreds of spells he can now learn at will. Excited by this newfound power, Liam quickly masters a wind attack spell, but when he uses it, the mysterious man who had been teaching him vanishes into thin air, leaving Liam thoroughly perplexed. And moments later, his maid appears, scolding Liam for wandering alone in such a dangerous place, and warns him that a suspicious individual has infiltrated the estate. She then hands him a book on novice summoning magic, a gift from Mr. Hamilton, and heads back toward the house. But before Liam can fully process this, the enigmatic man suddenly reappears. He reveals that he had merely concealed himself to avoid being seen by the maid, subtly hinting at the danger he might pose. With limited time left, the man offers to teach Liam one final spell. He then asks Liam to pick a spell from the summoning magic book, and after some thought, Liam selects a spell to summon a salamander, a low-level fire spirit. Following the man's guidance, Liam uses the ring to cast the spell. The summoning is successful, but the salamander is immediately absorbed into the ring. The man then explains that the ring functions as a limitless archive, recording every detail of the salamander's summoning process. Astonished by the ring's utility, Liam offers to return it, assuming it must be of great value. However, the man downplays its significance, describing it as a tool that simply spares the user from lugging around heavy grimoires. Relieved, Liam continues experimenting with summoning spells from the grimoire, but when he turns to seek the man's approval, he discovers that his mentor has disappeared yet again. But this time, the only trace left behind is a message scrawled on the ground, urging Liam to keep studying magic and to never reveal their encounter to anyone. Though their time together was brief, Liam considers the man his master and feels immense gratitude for his wisdom. A month later, Liam has mastered an impressive arsenal of attack and summoning spells. Then he combines his skills to create a functional furnace, using it to produce white charcoal. One day, Bruno pays Liam a visit and is astounded to find that Liam has already amassed a sizable supply of white charcoal, and even a bag of ichro crystals, powerful items used to restore magical energy. Liam then proudly explains that he crafted the crystals himself by harnessing 5 types of magic simultaneously, a feat that highlights his exceptional skills. Bruno, impressed by his younger brother's progress, expresses his pride and shares his plans for the future, and he announces his intention to marry into a low-ranking noble family to gain independence from the Hamilton household. Bruno then elaborates on the importance of independence by sharing a somber chapter from their family's history. He then reveals that in a desperate attempt to salvage their noble status, their father once sent a large battalion to fight a sealed monster in a distant land. The campaign ended in a devastating defeat, with only a handful of soldiers surviving. But despite this failure, Mr. Hamilton and their eldest brother remain relentless in their pursuit to preserve the family's position, even if it means resorting to drastic measures. Fearing Liam might be drawn into these schemes, Bruno encourages him to also seek independence. Taking Bruno's advice seriously, Liam embarks on his quest for financial independence. He then sells his white charcoal, earning a hefty pouch of gold coins, and treats himself to a delicious bowl of ramen at a local eatery. Inspired by the meal, he decides to introduce ramen culture to the Hamilton household. And by using an ice spirit, he dehydrates noodles to create instant ramen and teaches the family chef how to prepare it. Confident that this product could become a profitable business, Liam presents his idea to a local trader. However, the trader declines, explaining that only the Hamilton family's eldest son, Albrecht, has the authority to conduct business on behalf of the household. Frustrated but undeterred, Liam leaves the shop, unaware that Albrecht has been eavesdropping on his conversation. Consumed by jealousy over Liam's growing skills and ambitions, Albrecht steps forward and declares that he will no longer allow Liam to act freely. Liam, however, returns home and remains motivated to pursue his goals. He then stores his creations in a dimensional storage system he crafted using a spell from the ring. And to circumvent Albrecht's control, Liam devises a clever plan and uses an unconventional summoning spell to create a clone of himself, tasking it with traveling to the far lands to sell his goods while he stays behind to produce more. A few days later, Liam receives a payment from the items his clone sold, deposited directly into his dimensional storage system. So he overjoyedly celebrates the success of his plan, knowing that his journey toward independence has officially begun. The next day, Liam arrives at the Hunters Guild after being advised by his eldest brother Albrecht. Upon entering, he notes that the guild looks just as chaotic and lively as he heard. The moment he steps in, the eyes of seasoned hunters turn toward him, their expressions laced with curiosity and skepticism. One grizzled hunter even jeers, asking if Liam has come to run errands for his mummy. Liam, unfazed by the taunts of these dusty has-beens, walks straight toward a fierce-looking man who he assumes must be the guildmaster. Liam's intuition is correct because the man introduces himself and immediately recognizes him as Liam Hamilton, confirming that Albrecht had informed him of his arrival. But before proceeding further, the guildmaster explains that Liam must undergo a test to determine his appropriate class, and he assures Liam that this is standard procedure as it prevents inexperienced hunters from being placed in ranks they can't handle, and Liam agrees without hesitation, ready to prove himself. To begin the test, the guildmaster instructs Liam to cast an attack spell, suggesting that he take his time with the incantation. Liam confusedly asks what an incantation is, and the guildmaster chuckles at what he thinks is a joke but quickly realizes Liam is serious. Taking it up a notch, the guildmaster tells Liam to attack him directly and not hold back. Liam decides to give it his all, knowing this test will determine his placement, and with precision and raw power, he fires multiple blasts around the guildmaster's head, leaving the man wide-eyed in disbelief. The surrounding hunters are equally stunned, rendered speechless by the sheer intensity of Liam's magic. And despite the shock, the guildmaster keeps his composure and decides to assign Liam a B rank, acknowledging his impressive abilities. Liam, however, remains stoic, giving no indication of whether he's satisfied or not. As Liam steps out of the guild, he examines his new B-rank tag, unsure how to feel about it. While he's lost in thought, a charming girl with striking features approaches him. Introducing herself as Asuna, she comments on how dangerous it can be to hunt alone and proposes forming a party. Taken aback by her beauty, Liam is never one to miss an opportunity, enthusiastically agrees, and they then shake hands to seal the deal and set off together. While walking together, Liam reminds Asuna that they didn't take any hunting jobs from the guild, so she explains that hunting jobs are only assigned to A-ranked hunters and above. B-ranked hunters like them must find dangerous monsters on their own, kill them, and bring them back to the guild for a reward. As they continue, the two are suddenly ambushed by a pack of monstrous werewolves. With no way to escape, Asuna nearly loses her cool but regains her confidence when Liam uses his magic to place self-growing monsters inside the wolves' mouths. This clever tactic leaves the werewolves incapacitated and exhausted, allowing Asuna to deliver the finishing blows. After defeating all the wolves, they haul their kills back to the guild. Their performance leaves the other hunters stunned, highlighting their own inadequacy. Even the guildmaster is impressed, especially since the duo managed to take down 42 wolves on their own. Recognizing their potential, he offers them an actual hunting job. The mission involves hunting a large caterpillar monster that could disrupt the arrival of an important guest in town later that day. And while Asuna is elated to have their first real assignment, Liam focuses on the challenge of fighting monsters infused with magic stones, which make them much tougher than ordinary beasts. Then when they encounter the caterpillar monster, things go south quickly. And despite their efforts, nothing seems to work, leaving both of them exhausted. Even Liam tries every spell at his arsenal, but nothing seems effective against the creature, leaving him frustrated and feeling powerless. Asuna, discouraged by the difficulty of their first job, jokes about a meteor falling on the monster to end their misery. Inspired by her comment, Liam devises a plan to finish the creature for good. Then we see that by using Asuna as bait, he lures the monster to a deserted area and summons his item box to drop a massive boulder on it. The plan works perfectly, and they end up using the same tactic to take down a second caterpillar monster, and then they return to the guild with both monsters in tow. And their success leaves the guildmaster and other hunters dumbfounded yet again, to a degree that makes the guildmaster marvel how they managed to defeat two such formidable creatures in such a short time. And while the other hunters remain baffled by how Liam and Asuna managed to take down such formidable monsters, Asuna, ever the opportunist, tries to persuade the guildmaster to increase their reward, and she points out that without their intervention in defeating the second caterpillar monster, the important visitor could have faced serious trouble. Acknowledging the weight of her argument, the guildmaster agrees and offers to multiply their original reward by 5, and that makes Asuna beam with satisfaction, but Liam as usual remains indifferent. Later that day, the town gathers to await the arrival of the important visitor, and while standing among the crowd, Liam is approached by his elder brother Albrecht, who commends him for his recent successes at the guild. Albrecht then urges him to continue his hard work before leaving, but Asuna, observing the interaction, immediately labels him as rude. Liam agrees, noting that Albrecht has always seen him as nothing more than a nuisance. Still, the conversation is cut short as the important visitor arrives, and as the visitor makes his way through the crowd, he briefly locks eyes with Liam and Asuna, leaving her starstruck by his commanding presence. Later, Liam is formally introduced to the visitor, who reveals himself to be James Stanley. During their conversation, James comments on Liam's accomplishments and mentions that he is familiar with Liam's father. Shifting the topic, James inquires about the ring Liam possesses, claiming it once belonged to someone he knows named Raymond. Startled, Liam realizes James is referring to his master. James initially jokes that Liam might have killed Raymond to take the ring, but when Liam clarifies that Raymond was his teacher, James's demeanor softens. They then exchange stories about Liam's time as Raymond's student, and James finds the anecdotes amusing. Intrigued by Liam's potential, James decides to test the power of a student trained by Raymond. He then asks an acquaintance called Simon to shield himself from Liam's strongest attack. Normally, Liam doesn't bother with incantations, but he recalls reading that chanting can amplify a spell's power. With that in mind, he uses the names of his 3 favorite singers as a makeshift incantation and launches magic missiles at Simon. At first, Simon's magic barrier seems to hold steady, but the relentless missiles ultimately break through, knocking him unconscious. Witnessing this display, James is thoroughly impressed with Liam's capabilities, and as a reward he offers Liam the title of a knight, granting him the independence he has long desired from his family. Later that day, James keeps his word and officially knights Liam, hoping this new status will help him step out from the shadow of his brothers and carve his own path. After the ceremony, James grows curious about Liam's time under Raymond's tutelage. Knowing Raymond's mischievous nature, he asks if Liam ever fell victim to his master's pranks. The question triggers a vivid memory for Liam, and recalls the time Raymond gifted him 100 kilograms of gold dust as a graduation present, only to mix it with water in a lake and task Liam with perfecting the item box skill before he could access it. What seemed like a generous gift was in fact a cleverly disguised graduation test. Hearing this, James quickly deduces that the gold dust was a mere distraction, and the true gift was likely hidden nearby, though not in plain sight. Determined to uncover the truth, Liam revisits the lake. Using his item box, he drains all the water from it, revealing a barren lakebed. As he wanders the dry expanse, he ponders his master's cryptic instructions. After some thought, Liam devises a plan. He carefully separates the gold dust from the lakebed and returns it to the now dry lake. The moment he completes this task, a hidden door reveals itself, leading him to an underground chamber beneath the lake. Descending the stairs, Liam discovers a letter and an ancient book waiting for him. The letter explains that the book, a maximum-level grimoire, is his true graduation gift. Liam then excitedly picks up the book and realizes it contains the power to access an entirely new world. Intrigued by the potential of this mysterious power, he dedicates hours to practicing its spells. But despite initial failures, he persists, and after multiple attempts, he finally succeeds in casting a spell that conjures a massive mirror. Stepping through the mirror, Liam finds himself in an alternate dimension, an expansive space entirely separate from the spellcaster's world, and he also learns that this space would grow in proportion to the caster's power, and Liam marvels at its capabilities, and also knew that unlike the item box, this space could house not just objects but even people, opening a realm of endless possibilities. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Liam silently thanks Raymond for leaving him with such a powerful gift. A month later, Liam and Asuna find themselves battling a massive frog monster. Liam attempts to use fire salamanders against it, but the attack proves completely ineffective. Instead, the attack enrages the frog, which prepares to unleash a devastating lightning blast. Sensing the impending danger, Liam activates his otherworldly powers, pulling Asuna into his alternate space to shield them both from the frog's deadly strike. The frog eventually collapses from exhaustion, giving Asuna the opportunity to deliver the finishing blow. They retrieve the frog's magic stone and bring it back to the guild. The guildmaster is astonished that they managed to complete the ranked mission, although he gives Liam most of the credit, dismissing Asuna's role. This irritates her, but she brushes it off, choosing instead to focus on her desire to grow stronger and match Liam's abilities. Seizing the moment, the guildmaster suggests that Asuna become Liam's familiar, explaining that this bond would align her powers with his and significantly boost her abilities. Asuna is overjoyed at the idea and immediately agrees, despite one caveat: as his familiar, she would be unable to refuse his commands. But she jokingly adds that she doesn't mind even if Liam decides to be sneaky with her, making the situation both awkward and amusing. And with no objections from either party, Liam agrees to the arrangement. The guildmaster then performs the ritual, requiring Asuna to kiss the back of Liam's hand. And as soon as the bond is formed, Asuna's power surges. She gains a unique ability that allows her to move at superhuman speed, almost like the Flash. But while impressed by her newfound strength, Liam remains skeptical about the familiar contract's effectiveness in boosting abilities so quickly. So to test his doubts, he decides to try it with someone else. Asuna then recommends a woman she knows named Jody, and when Liam makes Jody his familiar, the transformation is equally surprising because Jody suddenly appears younger and gains the ability to heal others through her cooking. Days later, James summons Liam to his mansion with news about the arrival of Princess Scarlet. He commends Liam for his remarkable achievements since arriving in town, explaining that these accomplishments have captured the princess's attention. James then goes on to reveal that the princess is eager to see Liam's familiars in action and observe their unique abilities. However, Liam refuses outright, explaining that it would be an insult to his familiars, who are his trusted friends, not some sideshow performers. After he says this, James respects his decision and lets him go without further insistence. Unbeknownst to Liam, Princess Scarlet is actually disguised as this maid and overhears the entire exchange. Amused and intrigued, she confidently assumes that Liam wouldn't have the courage to refuse her if confronted directly. The next day, Liam is summoned to meet Princess Scarlet, but this time she isn't in disguise, and her full royal presence leaves no doubt about her authority, so Liam knows he'll have to be careful with his words. Entering the Grand Palace, he kneels before her, offering the respect her status demands. but Scarlet, uninterested in formalities, orders a seat to be brought for him. She wastes no time mentioning how she's heard about his feats, defeating an armored caterpillar and, more impressively, a giant frog. She's especially amazed he managed to kill the frog without using high-level magic, a feat no one else has ever accomplished. Still, her real interest lies in his familiars, and she asks him to show her their abilities. Liam quickly realizes that Scarlet is using her authority to make him comply, but he's not about to cave. Politely but firmly, he refuses her request. Scarlet's eyes narrow slightly as she asks if he truly means to defy a direct order from a noble. Yet Liam stands firm, no matter the consequences, adamant about not turning his companions into a mere spectacle for her entertainment. Expecting anger or even punishment, Liam is instead taken aback when Scarlet suddenly bursts out laughing. She finds his unwavering principles amusing and refreshing. He's the first person she's met who values his morals over the demands of authority, and that's something she can't help but respect. So she is pleased and decides to reward him on the spot, and without hesitation Scarlet declares that Liam will be granted the title of Baron. Liam is utterly shocked, insisting he hasn't done anything to earn such an honor. But Scarlet, having taken a liking to him, brushes aside his protests and says that she's the Dan Princess and she can do whatever she pleases, and she also points out that this title will ensure his family retains their status and security. But her generosity doesn't end there. With a regal flourish, she presents him with a familiar's contract grimoire. While the title leaves him in disbelief, the grimoire fills him with uncontainable excitement. Thanking Scarlet profusely, Liam leaves the palace with a spring in his step, eager to unlock the secrets of his new gift. A little while later, Liam is sitting in the forest, reading through the grimoire. He finds the spell's insight fairly easy to use, but he knows that until he masters the book, his contracts won't be permanent. As he's practicing, he suddenly notices Bruno walking toward him. Liam is surprised because Bruno got married and left home a while ago, so he asks Bruno why he's here, but Bruno doesn't have a real reason. He just wanted to visit and hang out with his little brother, mainly to congratulate Liam in person for becoming a baron, which he says is a huge accomplishment. Bruno even jokes that Liam now outranks their father, but Liam doesn't understand what he means because their father is a count, and he's only a baron. Bruno then explains that while barons are generally lower in rank than counts, this country divides nobles into two categories: those who inherit their titles and those who earn them through accomplishments, so naturally nobles who earn their titles are considered more impressive. Liam didn't know this, but even after hearing it, he doesn't really care because his only focus is learning more magic. Later, as Liam walks through the palace halls, he comes across Albrecht and greets him, but Albrecht completely ignores him, so Liam is left confused, wondering why Albrecht seems so upset. At the same time, Albrecht is furious because he can't stand the idea that his younger brother is somehow overshadowing him. Then while walking, he overhears two maids talking about Liam's achievements, and their praise for Liam only fuels his anger. He storms over to them, yelling that if they think Liam is so great, they should quit and go work for him instead. The maids quickly realize Albrecht is jealous of Liam, so they apologize and try to calm him down. But Albrecht doesn't stop there. He asks if they really believe Liam is more important than him. The maids, eager to keep their jobs, nervously assure him that he is of course better than Liam. Feeling slightly appeased but still angry, Albrecht walks away, determined to prove that he is the better brother, and he swears that he will accomplish something to show everyone that he deserves more recognition than Liam. The next day, Liam meets up with Asuna and Jody in town. The three of them quickly become the center of attention, mostly because Jody and Asuna are undeniably gorgeous. As a result, every guy in the crowd is glaring at Liam like he's the luckiest and most hated guy in the world. Ignoring the stares, Liam suggests they officially form a party. He makes it clear though that he won't pressure them into anything they don't want to do. But thankfully neither Asuna nor Jody have any objections, so they agree to team up. Later that day, the newly formed party heads into the forest on a mission, and during the mission, Jody takes aim with her bow and lands a perfect shot, hitting a wolf in the neck. As the wolf stumbles, Asuna rushes in and finishes it off with a clean strike from her sword. Liam, impressed by Asuna's speed, compliments her, noting how much faster she's become since becoming his familiar. Jody chimes in, pointing out that her eyesight has improved significantly since the contract reverted her to her younger self, and she jokes that she no longer has old lady vision. Liam then curiously asks if having better eyesight is always a good thing, and Jody assures him it is, especially since she's an archer. Taking that as a cue, Liam raises his hand and casts an enhancement spell on Jody's eyes, boosting her vision even further, and now she can see way beyond what was possible before. Asuna then intriguedly asks Liam what he just did. Liam explains that it was a basic enhancement spell to improve Jodie's vision, so she gets excited and immediately asks him to cast a similar spell on her. Liam hesitates though, explaining that while he could enhance her combat abilities, the risk isn't worth it, because enhanced strength could put too much strain on her body, potentially causing serious injuries like broken bones, but spells like vision enhancement are safe and effective. Thanks to the spell, Jodie can now snipe targets from an incredible distance, and she's beyond grateful to Liam for the upgrade. After a productive day of hunting, the group returns to the guild, but they are greeted by chaos. The guild is in complete disarray, and when they ask what happened, they're told that Albrecht caused a massive problem by breaking the forest seal. So Liam immediately pieces things together. Albrecht, who was consumed by jealousy, must have tried to defeat the monster sealed in the forest in an attempt to prove himself. Realizing the seriousness of the situation and feeling partly responsible for pushing Albrecht to such reckless actions, Liam wastes no time and bolts out straight for the forest, determined to assess the damage. Liam and the others soon arrive at the spot, and it's so much worse than they could have imagined. A lot of soldiers are badly injured, and many more are already in hell, and that shit makes Liam is absolutely horrified. He then spots Albrecht lying on the ground injured, so he quickly runs over to him. But as soon as Albrecht sees him, he jumps up in a frenzy, yelling that he hasn't failed yet. But just then the guildmaster steps in with a stick and whacks Albrecht over his damned head, muttering that the situation is already chaotic enough without a crazy, insecure noble running around making it worse. Then once Albrecht is taken away, the guildmaster approaches Liam and tells him he's glad he came. Asuna then asks what hell is going on, so the guildmaster explains that the dragon fiend Raiden was once sealed in these woods by Liam's great-grandfather. But the freaking Albrecht broke the damned seal in a failed attempt to defeat Raiden, and now the beast is loose. The guildmaster says they know how to reseal Raiden, and he's already gathered the people needed to do it, but the real damn problem is Raiden's children. And those little Raidons are the ones causing all the destruction so far. And also, if they can cause this much damage, it's terrifying to think about what the real Raiden might do once he regains his strength. But luckily the big Raiden has been sealed for so long that it will take about a week for him to recover enough to attack. So if they can reseal him before then, they can avoid disaster. Liam is determined to help, so he races to Raiden's location and finds him guarded by his 3 little Radons. The little Raidons aren't that big, so Asuna decides to take her chances and charges in for an attack. But before she can strike, one of the little Radons fires a massive fireball at her. She barely dodges, but the tree behind her is completely vaporized. Liam then tries to use his magic missiles to attack the little Raidons, but they counter with fireballs, canceling out his spell. Realizing his strongest attack isn't enough, Liam starts to feel stuck, but then he remembers he has one last trick he can try. Liam then tells Asuna to take Jodie and run. Though they hesitate, they listen and retreat. The little Raidens then charge straight at Liam, but just before they reach him, he opens his another world gate, creating a portal. The little Raidons, unable to stop in time, fall into the gate and are trapped inside another dimension. The guildmaster is stunned that Liam managed to defeat all 3 of the little Raidons by himself, but Liam, equally surprised, admits it was a close call. Now that the little Raidons are no longer a threat, the guildmaster calls for everyone to begin the process of sealing Raiden once again. As the preparations commenced, Asuna and Jodie return to Liam's side, and he's relieved to see that they're unharmed. They ask about the spell used to handle the little Radons, and Liam explains that it's a dimensional spell that creates a separate space, and also they won't be coming back again, because at his current level, anything trapped inside his dimensional spell gets erased when the gate closes. Just as Liam finishes explaining, a voice echoes in his mind, and in the blink of an eye, he is pulled into Raiden's consciousness. Inside the dragon's mind, Raiden greets him, addressing him as a human with an immense soul, and demands to know who he truly is. Liam is confused, replying that he's just an ordinary human, but Raiden clearly doesn't believe him. The dragon notes that Liam's soul and body don't align, which only deepens the mystery. Realizing what Raiden might mean, Liam recalls his reincarnation into the body of Lion Hamilton and wonders if Raiden knows anything about it. However, Raiden has no answers, and what he does know is that Liam's life is bound to be extraordinary, and he makes a surprising proposal. Raiden offers to accompany Liam, promising to bring no harm to him or anyone around him. Instead, he pledges to help Liam grow and refine his skills. Liam doesn't sense any hostility from Raiden, and intrigued by the offer, agrees to the deal. Then in an instant, Raiden's body begins to dissolve, and his essence is absorbed into Liam's soul, leaving behind a glowing dragon-shaped mark on Liam's hand. Liam immediately feels a surge of power coursing through him. To test it, he fires a magic missile into the sky and is shocked when he successfully controls and launches 17 spells simultaneously, so it's clear that Raiden's power has dramatically enhanced his abilities. However, the newfound power comes with unintended consequences. The dense mana emanating from Liam's body causes everyone nearby to experience severe headaches. Liam then notices everyone around him struggling and quickly realizes his uncontrolled mana is to blame. So he suppresses it immediately and apologizes for his carelessness. And to show his sincerity, he offers the Guildmaster 10 kilograms of gold dust and suggests using it to cover the treatment cost for those injured in the battle. Later that evening, Liam meets with his father, who expresses heartfelt gratitude. Liam's actions not only prevented disaster but also mitigated the damage caused by Albrecht's recklessness. His father also mentions that James is still in town, so word of Liam's accomplishments is likely to reach the royal capital soon. That night, Liam goes to bed exhausted, but he wakes up the next morning with a surprise, and its 2 new spells have appeared in his mind, so he excitedly rushes outside to test them. After several hours of trial and error, he successfully casts 1 spell, summoning a little Raiden. He then discovers that it's not yet combat ready, but with more practice, Liam plans to make it useful in battle, so it's now more like a cute pet. Then as Liam plays with the little Raiden, Princess Scarlet approaches unnoticed. Catching sight of him using magic, she recognizes it immediately as holy magic. Though she already knew Liam was talented, the revelation that he can wield holy magic at his age leaves her stunned. However, that's not why Scarlet is here. Scarlet has come to deliver Liam's reward for defeating the Dragon Fiend. While she had hoped to grant him a higher noble title, the other nobles objected to a landless child being promoted so quickly, but instead she awards him the Order of the Phoenix 3rd class. Then before leaving, she asked Liam to explain exactly how he defeated the dragon, as she may need to declare him a national hero depending on the details. But Scarlet gets horrified when Liam admits to absorbing the Dragon Fiend. She momentarily doubts everything she thought about him, but then remembers seeing him use holy magic, which complicates her judgment. But then ultimately she warns Liam to keep the truth about Raiden a strict secret. The next day, a chest containing 3,000 gold coins arrives as hush money. Liam is baffled by Scarlet's insistence on secrecy, but decides to go along with it, unsure of why this revelation is so damn dangerous.
Count James summons Liam to his mansion for a conversation and eagerly inquires if it's true that he has learned to use holy magic. However, Liam is stuck in a dilemma. He can't reveal the truth due to his promise to Princess Scarlet, leaving him in an awkward spot. James notices Liam's hesitation and clarifies his intentions, assuring Liam that his excitement stems from genuine admiration for Liam's achievements. He further reassures Liam that his accomplishments have cemented his place in the noble family. However, James reveals the source of his curiosity. Princess Scarlet sent Liam's family a reward for defeating the dragon without consulting the king. What's more, witnesses claim the great dragon fiend turned into a blinding light and entered Liam's body. Based on this, James assumes that Liam must have formed a contract with the dragon fiend, gaining the ability to use holy magic. Liam, who has already accepted hush money from Princess Scarlet to keep the details secret, wants to come up with a convincing lie. Unfortunately, his lack of creativity gets the better of him, and he spills the truth without any damn pressure. Embarrassed, Liam admits that he has learned a few holy spells and mentally apologizes to Princess Scarlet for being such a terrible secret keeper. James, however, is thrilled by Liam's honesty and asks him to demonstrate the spells he has learned, as it would give him a better understanding of Liam's talent. So Liam complies and uses a holy spell called All Clear on James, explaining that it removes all status ailments, including poison and petrification. The effects are immediate. James feels the magic's purity and remarks that it's no wonder holy magic is known as the magic of the gods. To give Liam a deeper understanding of its divine reputation, James begins to recount the legendary story of the War of the Three Great Dragons. In this ancient war, 3 majestic dragons waged a relentless battle for survival. One fateful day, the war abruptly ended, with one dragon triumphing over the others. Legends say its victory was due to someone wielding holy magic on its behalf. The tale goes on to describe how the victorious dragon formed a bond with a human. Together, they harnessed holy magic to establish a nation none other than the one Liam now peacefully calls home. While many might assume the dragon married the human and had children, James has a different perspective. He theorizes that the dragon was absorbed by the human, just as Liam absorbed the dragon fiend Raiden and became one with it. This parallel makes it seem like Liam is recreating the very legend behind their nation's founding, which deeply worries James not just for Liam's sake, but for his entire family. If Radon truly is one of the 3 great dragons that entered a deep slumber after parting with its chosen human, it would mean the Hamilton family sealed away their nation's original founder. Such an act would discredit their historic achievement, possibly leading to the family losing their noble status entirely. And that's not even the worst of it. Given how long Radon was sealed, it might hold a grudge and plan to retaliate against the nation for its perceived betrayal. Although this isn't the truth, Liam now faces the monumental challenge of proving it. Determined, he reflects on his conversation with Radon and reassures James that the dragon harbors no ill will. He explains that Radon merged with him purely out of curiosity about his life. Satisfied with this explanation, James concludes that Liam may very well be their nation's savior. James allows Liam to leave. Liam, eager to clear his mind, heads into town, where he soon runs into his 2 loyal familiars, Asuna and Jody. Then Asuna suddenly grabs Liam's hand and pulls him away from the bustling crowd before anyone can notice him. Liam confusedly asks what the hell is going on. So Asuna explains that word of his great achievement has spread, and now every adventurer in town wants to join his party. She hands him an extensive list of applicants, leaving him with the daunting task of choosing their next teammate. Liam returns home and is greeted by the maid, who informs him that he has received hundreds of marriage proposals. But when he barely glances at one, his older brother Bruno shows up, insisting that Liam marry the girl he has personally chosen for him. However, Bruno is more curious about Liam's latest feats, wondering why even high-ranking nobles are so eager to align themselves with their family through marriage. Sticking to his promise to Princess Scarlet, Liam carefully avoids revealing that he absorbed the dragon, and with his best poker face, he prays Bruno drops the subject. That afternoon, Liam takes Asuna and Jody into the woods. There, he uses his otherworld spell to transport them to a new dimension, proudly revealing a house he built entirely by himself. He demonstrates his mastery of the spell as he shows them around. Then, to enhance the natural feel of the environment, Liam summons a low-level dark spirit to create darkness and simulate night. He also summons the fire spirit salamander to light the fireplace. When Jody comments that the space is still too dark, pointing out that the dark spirit should be able to adjust the level of darkness. However, Liam realizes the spirit isn't yet capable of that. Determined to fix this, he decides to level up the dark spirit into a mid-level version and binds it as his familiar, allowing it to evolve. Now the dark spirit can control the lighting perfectly, enveloping the space with a more natural ambience. Using his ring, which doubles as a magic spell storage device, Liam absorbs the dark spirit's abilities, learning how to summon mid-level spirit. Building on this progress, he upgrades his salamander spirit to a mid-level version as well. Then, using the same method, Liam upgrades his other familiars, storing their summoning spells in his ring and mastering them all at once. Overjoyed with his progress, Liam can't wait to explore these newly mastered spells. His passion for magic drives him forward, and with Radon's request in mind, he prepares for the next stage of his journey in the woods. Shortly after, Radon calls on Liam to summon his child. Using the summoning spell he had been practicing, Liam manages to summon a young dragon. Surprisingly, the dragon leads him to a hidden fairy village, where the pixies are happily playing. Their joy quickly turns to fear when they spot a dirty human, and they scatter in panic. The pixies only stop fleeing when he calls out that he was sent by Radon. As proof, he lifts the young dragon for them to see, so the pixies recognize the dragon and believe him. Liam then explains that he was sent to protect them since they've long been victims of greedy humans hunting their wings for profit. Radon had previously shielded them with a magical barrier, but now he wishes for Liam to take over that duty. Liam casts a contract spell on one of the pixies and names her Reincarnated. The spell transforms the tiny pixie into a grown-up elf. The other pixies are amazed, and even Radon seems surprised by this unexpected evolution. He informs Liam that naming magical creatures can often trigger their growth into more advanced forms. Witnessing Reincarnated's transformation, the other pixies eagerly beg Liam to name them too. Then, without wasting any time, Liam names all the pixies, resulting in a series of similar evolutions. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the newly transformed informed elves thank him profusely and even declare their loyalty and love for him. Wanting to help him as his familiars, the elves ask what they can do, so Liam cluelessly instructs them to build a village where they can live and thrive. He then appoints Reincarnated, the first pixie he evolved, as the village chief, and she enthusiastically accepts the role. Then, while the elves busy themselves figuring out how to construct homes, Liam, drained from all the excitement, decides to explore. He soon senses a strong magical energy emanating from the wood. Following it, he stumbles upon a massive tree bearing a glowing fruit. Reincarnated, having followed him, explains that the fruit is a concentrated gathering of magic power the pixies have been storing over the years. At that moment, the dragon urges Liam to eat the fruit, and Reincarnated agrees, and without hesitation, Liam cuts it down and takes a bite. Then immediately his body begins to glow, and he feels his power grow exponentially. To test this, he fires a few magic missiles. Marveling at their enhanced strength, satisfied with his enhanced abilities, Liam leaves the village. The next day, Liam returns to check on the progress of the elves and is immediately disappointed by their abysmal building skills. Their so-called house looks like a sad pile of sticks and leaves thrown together by a child. In their defense, none of them ever took an engineering class. As Liam stands there pondering the disaster, a loud scream echoes from the distance. Rushing toward the sound, they discover a group of scruffy bandits who have captured one of the elves. Upon seeing Liam, the bandits mistakenly assume he's just a harmless kid, so one of them confidently charges at him. But Liam effortlessly blasts the fool into oblivion with his magic missiles. The rest of the bandits, not learning from their buddy's mistake, charge in too. But this time Liam summons his duplicate, and together they rain down magical destruction, wiping out the bandits in no time. The elves are thrilled by Liam's overwhelming power, but he's more concerned about their safety. Realizing the area is too dangerous, he uses his Another World spell to peer into the alternate dimension. Initially, he worries it won't be big enough to house the elves, but thanks to the boost he received from the magic power fruit, the dimension is much larger than he expected. So Liam quickly urges the elves to enter the portal, transporting them to safety. Once they arrive at their new home, the elves are awestruck by how quickly they travel. Liam explains that this land belongs to him and that it will keep them safe from bandits. Overwhelmed by his kindness, the elves drop to their knees, pleading for him to become their leader. Some even suggest making him their king. Embarrassed and feeling unworthy of the title, Liam settles for leader, thinking it's a lot less pressure. Liam treats the elves to bowls of ramen while practicing the high-level holy magic Radon had gifted him. And after 4 grueling days of trial and error, he finally masters the spell. Eager to test it, he focuses on a location, places his duplicate there, and prepares to teleport everyone at once. Gathering the girls, he activates the spell, and in an instant, they find themselves in a new location. Their destination is revealed to be a mysterious place called the Sealed Land. Then, while the girls marvel at the beautiful and eerie landscape, Liam excitedly talks about how he wants to perfect the spell even further, dreaming of teleporting anywhere he desires with ease. Just then, Liam steps forward, stretches out his hand, and breaks the seal on the land, revealing a more vibrant and breathtaking view. The elves are thrilled by the transformation, but before they can settle here, they face the issue of water. To resolve this, Liam summons a water spirit and asks for help in finding a water source, and with her assistance, he quickly locates a suitable spot and thanks her for the help. With this, the elves' accommodation problem is almost resolved, and Liam feels a sense of accomplishment. He then spends the next few days training in the woods to shorten the casting time for his teleport spell, and after many trials and errors, he finally achieves success, and his excitement is boundless. Later, Liam prepares to leave the village and entrusts the young dragons to watch over the elves while he is gone. And by using his newly improved spell, Liam teleports to Princess Scarlet's palace. The princess then asks if Radon has told him anything about a promised land. Liam denies it but mentions discovering a sealed land, which piques her interest. She requests to see it, but Liam asks for a favor first. Later, Scarlet introduces Golak, the royal court engineer. Using a familiar contract, Liam creates a copy of Golak to assist with the elves' village construction. Once this is done, Liam takes Scarlet and the copy to the sealed land, and upon seeing it, Scarlet is amazed, believing it might truly be the promised land of legend. To test her theory, Scarlet produces an ancient ring, and when Liam touches it, the entire land shimmers with power and begins to float. The princess is awestruck by the sight, and her voice begins trembling as she bows deeply before Liam, addressing him as the master of the promised land, and she expresses her desire to join him in building a new nation on this land. And all that shit makes Liam feel like a surreal dream. But the gravity of the situation quickly sinks in because he realizes that his responsibilities are only beginning. Then we see the court mage setting up the area while Liam faces an intense battle with a local beast. Using fiery missile spells, he managed to defeat the creature and claim victory. Afterward, Liam turned to the princess and asked if she intended to return to her kingdom. She replied that she was there to serve him if he needed anything, adding that she preferred he not call her princess but address her by her name instead. Liam hesitated, pointing out her high status, but the princess reassured him, explaining that her family carried the bloodline of the great dragon, as did she, and that her duty was to serve him at all time. Liam informed her that the dragon wanted to show her something, and she immediately agreed, stating she was ready. They then arrived at a massive gate and stepped inside, only to find another colossal dragon resting there. Liam observed the creature and noted that it appeared to be made of metal. Suddenly, the dragon opened its eyes and let out a deafening roar. Startled, Liam sought answers from the dragon within him, who explained that this was the guardian of the land, with its name inscribed in ancient script across its forehead. The dragon then told Liam that to gain the guardian's obedience, he needed to erase one of the letters from its name. The princess quickly identified the second letter, and Liam used his magic to erase it. Instantly, the guardian dragon ceased its hostility, bowing to Liam in submission. The princess approached the dragon and touched it, noting that it remained calm. She explained to Liam that the dragon recognized the dragon's bloodline flowing within her. Satisfied, Liam left the princess with the guardian dragon, but he suddenly recalled their earlier conversation and realized he had accidentally referred to her as princess again, a slip that had previously annoyed her. Quickly correcting himself, he called her Scarlet instead. She smiled warmly at him, reassuring him that she would remain with the dragon to care for it until its wounds fully recovered. Returning to town, Liam reflected on how unusual it was for a princess to willingly serve him. The dragon within him commented that it wasn't strange at all, considering the incredible power Liam now possessed. Suddenly, Liam spotted smoke rising from the direction of the village under construction, so without hesitation, he used a teleportation spell to hurry to the scene. And when he arrived, he found the village in ruins, and then two fairies approached him, their faces filled with worry. One explained that werewolves had attacked, destroying everything in their path. Moments later, the werewolves appeared, growling as they confronted Liam. Their leader stepped forward, snarling that the land was sacred and the fairies had no right to live there. Liam then approached the leader calmly, suggesting they talk things over, but the werewolf ignored him and attacked without warning. Liam swiftly blocked the strike and vanished, reappearing behind the werewolf and striking him with a spell that left him injured. Instead of finishing the werewolf, Liam used a healing spell, surprising everyone. He then revealed the baby dragon he had been protecting, leaving the werewolf shocked. Liam asked the leader if they had ties to the dragons and explained that this land was under the dragon's protection. He added that the fairies served the dragons, and since he carried their power, they now served him as well. The werewolf leader, realizing his mistake, lowered his head in regret. Rihanna reassured him and suggested that he and his kin form a contract to serve Liam, just as the fairies had done. Liam then smiled and introduced himself as Liam Radon. So the werewolf leader asked if Liam could do for them what he had done for the fairies. Liam nodded, explaining that since they had once served the dragons, he would grant them the same protection. Liam then cast the spell, transforming the werewolves into a new form. And to his surprise, the first werewolf to change back was a strikingly beautiful female. The next day, Liam strolled through the town and observed the werewolves assisting in the reconstruction of the houses. One of them, named Chris, eagerly ran over to him, hugging him tightly and enthusiastically announcing that they were following his orders to repair the damage. Liam reminded her that they had caused the destruction in the first place, so Chris apologized. but Liam reassured her that there was no issue since they were now working to make amends. He then glanced at one of the damaged buildings and remarked that he wished he had a spell to make it indestructible so it wouldn't break again. The dragon inside him suggested that he could create such a spell. Liam was surprised and asked how to go about it, so the dragon explained that he needed to picture the construction process in detail, step by step, and use his magic accordingly. Taking the advice to heart, Liam visualized the process, carefully planned it out in his mind, and cast the spell. To test it, he asked Chris to try breaking a wooden beam. Chris punched the beam, snapping it in two, but to her shock, it instantly restored itself to its original state. She was astonished at how effective the spell was. Later, Liam ventured to a remote area to practice new spells, reflecting on the significant improvements he had made. The dragon then encouraged him to keep developing his abilities and suggested that when he founded a great nation, he could create unique spells tailored to its needs. Liam agreed, feeling excited about the prospect of crafting spells from scratch and mastering their use. Reincarnated soon approached Liam and informed him that a group of humans was searching for the fairies. Liam quickly headed to the forest, where he found warriors pursuing the fairies. He stepped forward and warned the warriors to leave this sacred land. They dismissed his warning and demanded that he move out of their way. In response, Liam unleashed a barrage of fiery missiles, warning them this was their final chance to retreat. Undeterred, one of the warriors charged at him on horseback, so Liam vanished, reappeared behind the rider, and struck with such force that the warrior was thrown off his horse. And then he did the same thing to all of them, and the last remaining warrior was hit so hard that his helmet flew off as he collapsed to the ground. Liam then sternly warned the group never to set foot in this sacred land again. Returning to the village, Liam was warmly greeted by Reincarnated, who ran up to him, concerned for his well-being. He reassured her that everything was fine and that the situation had been resolved. Reincarnated then informed him that the fairies, who had fled their homes because of the guards, had now pledged their loyalty to him. Hearing this, Liam cast a spell on the fairies, transforming each of them into elves. Later that evening, Liam gathered Scarlet, Reincarnated, and Chris in his home to discuss recent events. He presented the helmet he had taken from the warriors and asked if anyone recognized it. Scarlet examined the artifact and explained that it belonged to the nearby Land of Beauty, a neighboring region close to the Promised Land. She warned Liam that many neighboring territories coveted the Promised Land and that this helmet was likely evidence of their growing interest. Liam realized the urgency of building a nation to secure their land. Scarlet agreed, but reminded him that a nation needed three key elements to succeed: land, people, and authority. She assured him that they already had the land, and that word of his deeds would naturally attract a loyal population. Liam acknowledged this, but pointed out the need for an army to establish authority and defend their new nation. Chris stepped forward, vowing that she and the werewolves would handle the defense, urging him not to worry. The next day, an envoy from the Land of Beauty arrived, bearing a message from their prince. The prince proposed an alliance and a marriage between Liam and Princess Scarlet. Recalling the dragon's earlier hints about Scarlet's connection to the dragons, Liam grew suspicious. He asked the envoy if he had met Scarlet before, and the envoy confirmed that he had encountered her numerous times. Surprising Liam, his suspicions deepened, but he chose to keep them to himself for now, using a telepathic spell to speak privately with Scarlet. Liam sought her advice on how to respond to the proposal. Scarlet confidently urged him to accept, explaining that regardless of the prince's true intentions, the alliance would save them valuable time and bring significant strategic benefits. Liam then turned to the envoy and accepted the proposal, but with the condition that he be given 1 year to prepare the land to be worthy of the princess. The envoy agreed and departed. As Liam watched him leave, the dragon within him commented that this alliance would demand significant effort and preparation. But despite this, Liam felt an overwhelming sense of pride and happiness at his progress toward establishing the nation of his dreams. Liam then arrived at the kingdom, waiting for his duplicate to rendezvous with him. Together they disappeared, teleporting directly to Scarlet's residence. Liam explained that he had sent his duplicate ahead with Scarlet earlier, allowing him to use it as a beacon to reach her home easily. Once there, he dismissed the duplicate, instructing it to vanish. Scarlet then approached Liam, asking whether he was the real one one or just another duplicate, but Liam reassured her that he was indeed the real one and took a moment to compliment the beauty of her residence. He then expressed interest in exploring the kingdom since it was his first visit. Scarlet, however, reminded him of his status as a nation's leader, warning him against wandering around carelessly. She then invited him to join her for tea, ensuring his visit began with proper hospitality. While inside the residence, Liam suddenly sensed the presence of the dragon's spirit in the area. Intrigued, he asked the dragon within him if it was connected to this place. The dragon confirmed that something in the vicinity was tied to it. Growing more curious, Liam questioned Scarlet about this connection. Scarlet admitted its existence and led him to a dragon statue housed within the estate. She explained that the statue had been a treasured artifact passed down through generations in her family. Liam remarked that he could feel a powerful energy radiating from it. The dragon within Liam then instructed him to merge with the statue. Taken aback by this, Liam cast a spell on the artifact, triggering a surge of energy that caused it to merge with Scarlet's body. Scarlet, overwhelmed by the sudden power, instinctively released a training strike into the air before collapsing to the ground, visibly drained. The statue soon re-emerged from her body, its energy subdued, and Scarlet admitted that she had expended all her strength in the process. The dragon inside Liam then revealed that the statue was one of his creations, crafted to allow humans to access a fraction of his power. Liam asked Scarlet if the merge had granted her the ability to use the dragon's strength. Scarlet confirmed this, noting that during the brief fusion, she had been able to perform spells similar to Liam's, though it had left her utterly exhausted. The dragon then explained that there were 3 types of statues, with the golden one being the most powerful. However, the others had been lost in past battles. Liam boldly declared that they would create new ones, claiming he knew more about the process than anyone else. He then asked Scarlet for the specific materials required to craft a new dragon statue. Using his spells and alchemy skills, Liam successfully created another statue and handed it to Scarlet, instructing her to pour her blood onto it. When she did, the statue merged with both her and the dragon, granting Scarlet access to its powers. And this time she summoned a sacred arrow that struck with immense force but left her unharmed. She was amazed by the protective shield, comparing it to a living entity. Liam followed up by blessing the statue with a spell and naming it Ares, patron of battle. Scarlet tested her new abilities again, summoning a sacred spear that effortlessly cut through trees. She marveled at the extraordinary strength she now possessed. The dragon then revealed to Liam that similar power had been granted to another follower in the past. Liam then asked if the dragon was referring to the black dragon Radon, and the dragon confirmed it. Intrigued, Liam asked if he could try the process himself, and the dragon encouraged him to proceed. Liam approached the black Radon, an enormous, imposing dragon that moved freely. Following the same process, he poured blood onto Radon and used the merging spell. The dragon's energy fused with Liam, granting him incredible strength. He then unleashed a barrage of powerful missile attacks before the dragon separated from him, leaving Liam collapsing to the ground, utterly drained. Scarlet quickly rushed to his side, and Liam reassured her that he was fine, though he admitted he had lost his strength. The dragon then informed Liam that he was only the 3rd person in history to survive such a process. Shocked by the revelation, Liam admitted that he hadn't realized how dangerous it was. The dragon, however, told him to master the process, hinting that with such power at his disposal, the entire world could one day be his. The following day, after absorbing the monastones, Liam felt his strength fully restored. Seizing the moment, he turned to Scarlet with a request to temporarily borrow Guardian Radon. Without hesitation, she agreed, even asserting that he was more than deserving of keeping the dragon as his own. Grateful for her generosity, Liam carefully stored Radon within his item box, marveling at the creature's lifelike presence. Despite this, Radon's voice echoed in his mind, subtly protesting the notion of ownership. Turning to the princess, Liam informed her of his plan to return to the village, leaving her behind in the royal capital to monitor the unfolding events and the fate of the promised land. Soon after, Liam used the same spell to teleport back to the village and used the same spell to send Scarlet back to the capital. There the people worked relentlessly, smiles plastered on their faces. Once the first phase of the village's construction was complete, Reincarnated told Liam that trolls were 3-meter-tall creatures of sheer muscle that lived nearby. Liam recalled having heard that trolls' temperaments varied widely. They could be as gentle as lambs or as brutally violent as hell. Unfortunately, according to the fairy, these particular beasts were downright hostile, with humans relentlessly encroaching on their territory. So Liam figured that if fighting broke out, it'd be a real nightmare. While Reincarnated mused about persuading the trolls to side with him in the war. Finally, Liam inquired about the monster's whereabouts. Afterwards, he appeared in a barren, seemingly lifeless land, a stark contrast to the fertile soil it once had not long ago. Picking up an iron ore stone from the ground, he scanned the area, noting the scarcity of vegetation, yet remarked that the region was chock full of hidden treasures. At that very moment, trolls emerged before the boy, demanding to know what he was doing there. So Liam explained that he was in the process of building a nation and sought to recruit them. But the leader of the monsters deemed humans untrustworthy and promptly shot down the proposal. Liam begged for their trust, swearing that he would harm no one, and pointed out that fairies and werewolves had already joined his cause. Unmoved by Liam's plea, the massive creature slammed its club into the ground, carving out a small crater that nearly ended Liam's damn life if he hadn't managed to escape in time. The troll persisted, launching several savage blows that forced the mage to scurry away like a rat as he desperately contemplated how to reverse the tide, especially given that this troll was as formidable as legend claimed, so any hesitation might spell doom for Liam. Meanwhile, as Liam dodged yet another strike, he discovered his legs were ensnared in a deep crevice, with a malicious grin plastered on the monster's face. Liam suspected he had been deliberately lured into this trap. When the troll hefted his club and struck down hard, everyone assumed the battle was over. Yet remarkably, Liam burst forth from beneath the rubble, with his guardian radon magical armor still intact. Stunned, the troll realized with disbelief that he hadn't harmed his opponent at all. However, the situation ran even deeper. Scanning the chaos, the troll chief noticed that in his overzealous swing at the boy, he had inadvertently injured his own allies. Liam later confessed that he had intentionally not dodged the final blow to prevent the chief from hitting his companions. Normally unable to summon such an array of spells, he had instead relied on his magical armor to amplify his power and generate additional illusions to protect the other trolls. Hearing this, the chief recognized that this child was surprisingly kind, a stark contrast to his initial assumptions. Consequently, he promised to listen to what Liam had to say. Likewise, Liam began to suspect that these trolls might not be as savage as Reincarnated had portrayed. In fact, they could very well be the opposite. Still, the chief demanded to know what the boy intended from them. Liam then laid out the process of building the village, explaining how the trolls' involvement was vital for several reasons. He argued that humans would likely invade the land, and if the trolls remained isolated, they'd be vulnerable to attack and ultimately doomed in the war. And frankly, Liam didn't want that outcome. Consequently, the chief agreed to inspect the village before making any decisions, prompting Liam to teleport everyone there. Transported by the magical means, the monsters were utterly astonished, having never witnessed anything like it before. Suddenly, Chris appeared, pointing an accusing finger at the troll chief and demanding to know what this brute was doing there. Recognizing he was facing the infamous boar woman, the chief braced himself as Chris, seething with fury over the ridiculous nickname, launched a swift, flying kick that sent the massive troll crashing to the ground in an instant. Concerned and uncertain about the next move, Liam inquired about the connection between the wolf and this man, but Chris couldn't offer an explanation. Ever since meeting this troll, she found him so irritating that every encounter inevitably spiraled into an unprovoked brawl. In fact, tallying all their clashes revealed 307 victories and 378 losses for Chris. Naturally, she was desperate to understand how the giant could collapse so easily when he once seemed far tougher. Liam then clarified that the troll hadn't weakened at all. Instead, the wolf had grown significantly stronger after sealing the familiar pact. On hearing this, the girl boasted that she had essentially become the last cookie in the jar overnight and vowed never to lose to a walking sack of muscle under these circumstances again. Moreover, she suggested that the troll chief should also forge a familiar contract pact with the human mage to evolve. According to her, since he had lost this duel, the big guy owed her a favor, and that favor would be to initiate the pact. With the troll accepting the terms, Liam set the process in motion and christened him Guy. Once done, Guy adopted a more humanized form. Though his size diminished, his internal power surged dramatically. Seizing the balanced moment, Chris wasted no time diving into round 2. This time, however, Guy exhibited astonishing reflexes and defended himself with masterful precision, proving that a single punch could literally bury an adversary beneath the earth. Even though it was merely a casual duel between the two, Liam observed that it had escalated into a high-caliber battle. Guy's comrades watched in amazement as their leader grew even stronger than before, hailing him as a legendary Gigas, the natural evolution of trolls. Thereupon, Liam vowed to extend the same transformation to all the new comrades, and as he turned the trolls into Gigas, he celebrated gaining formidable allies for the village's protection. Additionally, this species proved remarkably effective at manual labor, as evidenced when they began assisting in extracting heavy stones. Likewise, Chris attempted to help with the work, but without their strength, it quickly became apparent as the wolf girl struggled to move a bag laden with a massive rock. Guy urged her to take it easy and insisted on handling the heavy lifting until Chris was nearly crushed by the very stone she was pulling. The Gigas lent a hand to ease her burden, only for her to stand up fume and declare that he shouldn't think he'd won just because of that, before storming off in embarrassment. Later, after hauling a hefty load of stone back to the village, the troll chief asked what Liam planned to do with it all. So Liam explained that he intended to extract metals from the stones by summoning gnome and salamander to heat and melt the rocks in a forge, separating the metals. Once completed, the nobleman obtained portions of gold, copper, and silver, but mostly a substantial amount of iron. Unfortunately, aside from these, almost no high-grade mithril was yielded. Radon clarified that mithril is an extremely rare metal in the human world and nearly impossible to come by. Yet Liam remained frustrated, hoping to find even a little more of this material in the troll quarry for the production of magical armors and masks. However, since there wasn't enough to craft powerful armors, Liam announced he might try other methods, although Raven was quick to warn that such efforts were bound to fail. Either way, Liam didn't see failure as a disaster, a stance that provoked a hearty laugh from the dragon, who joked about the young man's carefree outlook. For him, failing was neither a total loss nor an outright win. According to Liam, that's pretty much how he viewed magic. You have to keep at it until you master the technique. With this mindset, Liam had Salamander melt the iron and instructed Gnome to fashion a mold to pour the molten metal into. Once everything was set, he channeled Radon's power through the mold. Recalling how Scarlet's armor had become far stronger once it was given a name, Liam figured he could repeat the process with iron armor. Before long, he christened the equipment Apollo, meaning sun, believing that naming it to match the mold would endow the garment with even greater power. Incidentally, Liam had used the same naming strategy for everyone in the village, giving each a name that suited their essence, and it was remarkable to observe how they all evolved according to the names they were given. In the end, Liam successfully produced magical iron armor, and even Raven had to admit that Liam's idea was brilliant and that he had fully realized his intention. Without a doubt, Liam provided endless amusement in the dragon's life. In the late afternoon, Liam racked his brains, searching for fresh names to empower more armors since he couldn't repeat the same one. Radon then remarked that naming things was a primitive trick any human could pull off, and Liam agreed that it was precisely because it was so basic that its magic dwindled when overused. The next day, after some serious mental gymnastics, he managed to forge 15 more armors, handing them out evenly to 5 elves, 5 werewolves, and 5 gigas. During the first training session with these new armors, Guy and Chris got into it again, and Liam mused about pairing them up in the same group since they were so infatuated with each other. Perhaps a little friendly competition between them would spark the kind of internal rivalry that boosts their mission outcomes. However, tension mounted when a group of humans on horseback showed up, their malicious smiles widening at the sight of the elves. Without wasting a moment, the humans decide to chase after the elves, apparently eager to snatch everything up for the black market. But Rihanna stayed cool as a cucumber and whispered something into Mina's ear. Catching the hint, Mina slowly approached the men. They assumed the elf was surrendering willingly until she smashed the leader's face with a punch and swiftly took down several of his cronies. Liam watched the scene with pride, remembering how defenseless the elves used to be. Now, with many of them donning the armors he had crafted, they could stand up to threats. Yet just then, the bandit leader crept up behind Liam and pressed a knife against his throat. Even so, Guy, Chris, and Rihanna breathed a collective sigh of relief, glad that it was Liam who was taken hostage. The bandit roared his seriousness, baffled by the reaction of these creatures, until Liam launched a power missile straight down the man's throat, ending him on the spot. Terrified by such raw power, the remaining humans scattered in a mad dash to flee. Following their victory, Liam stepped into the otherworld and performed a mass invocation of Celsius, ordering them to expel the seawater from the item box, separate the fresh water from the salt, and return both back to the box. The elementals grasped the command and executed the process, boosting the village's water supply for the new residents. Meanwhile, the very first Windine that had evolved into Celsius thanked her master for everything he had done. Her realm had expanded so much that she even learned to possess human objects. But she worried about catching hell from the Spirit King if she overused that ability. Liam was taken aback to learn such a king existed and grew curious about what the elemental meant by possessing objects. She explained that a mid-level spirit learns to possess things, which is why so many pieces of equipment are inhabited by spirit powers. With that in mind, Liam forged a pact with Celsius and dubbed her Celsius Zero. After the transformation, the mage crafted another suit of armor and had Zero possess it. In the end, the process was a success, filling Liam with pride. Later, as he distributed the spirit-powered armors to his main allies, Liam grew even more excited to see that they could now cast spells. The trio was thrilled with the newfound strength, even though Chris and Rihanna were wiped out from the high mana consumption. Despite his own fatigue, Guy vowed to use all this power to protect the people, prompting the other two to pledge the same. Amidst all this, Liam contemplated the incredible potential of mass producing more mid-level spirit-possessed armors, believing it would provide the strength necessary to safeguard the nation. Yet Radon thought Liam was damn naive. After all, if these three superior species were equipped with the new magical armors, they'd collectively wield the power of an entire army, capable of toppling another nation. And such immense power could be catastrophic if it fell into the wrong hands. Several days later, Liam made his way back to his hometown, where Asuna and Jody had been anxiously awaiting his return. They immediately chastised him for his recent absences and then demanded that he fork over some cash, since he always takes all the money from their quests. Then at home, Liam surprised them by handing over a generous portion of the money that Scarlet had paid him to keep Radon's existence a secret. The girls were utterly stunned by the enormous sum, yet they decided to hold on to it for themselves. Without wasting time, they head out shopping with the money. Instead of buying things for themselves, these naive choose to purchase a gift for Liam, who apparently has a ton of money already. They buy the only magic book available in the entire city, and from it, Liam learns a new spell. He thanks the two girls and then takes them to an inn where he reveals that he's in the process of building a country. They are shocked by his announcement. Then, when he asks them to live with him there, he expects them to refuse. But Liam is surprised when they agree to follow him to the ends of the earth. They're all set to start the journey immediately. But Liam insists he must first master the new spell he learned from the magic book. He casts a spell called Dust Box, and before his eyes, a black box materializes. He spams the incantation repeatedly until he's confident he's reached the peak of his skill, then decides to test it out, explaining to the girls that the dust box works just like an item box, and its capacity is determined by the caster's mana. Curious about the differences, the girls watch as Liam places a slice of their food inside for 1 minute. When he retrieves it, the food reeks unmistakably of his grandma's foot. Realizing that this spell quickly spoils anything stored within it. Liam notes that while the dust box might be useful in certain special cases, he's not yet sure how best to apply it. At that moment, he spots a waitress carrying a bottle of wine. Without hesitation, Liam chases after her and manages to snag a bottle of freshly squeezed grape juice instead. He decides to mix in some yeast with the juice and then places the concoction in the dust box for 5 minutes, eager to see what happens next. When he retrieves it, the grape juice has transformed into wine, and Liam realizes his hunch was correct. The dust box ferments things lightning fast. Intrigued, he ponders what other uses it might have. But first he decides to test the precise relationship between time and fermentation. He places 10 bottles of grape juice into the dust box at 1-hour intervals, then calls Jody for a taste test. Noting that although she appears young, she's a veteran hunter, Jody starts with the bottle that has been in the box for 1 hour and moves sequentially up to the one that's been in for a full 10 hours. As Liam watches her gulp down each glass, he begins drooling, nostalgically recalling the wild drinking parties he used to have with his friends. Meanwhile, Asuna accuses him of ogling Jody and promptly smacks the pervert out of him. Once Jody finishes her assessment, she declares that the 1-hour sample tastes like wine aged 1 year, while the 10-hour sample has the depth of a 10-year vintage. So Liam concludes that 1 hour in the dust box is equivalent to 1 year of natural fermentation. After the experiment, he takes Asuna and Jody back to his village, where they're astonished to see 3 different races working under his command. Bonds are quickly forged, and that night the village throws a lively party in celebration. The next day, they head into the forest and discover a bounty of wild fruit trees. Liam instructs everyone to collect the fruits so that he can turn them into wine and launch his own alcohol brand. True to form, Guy and Chris begin competing over who can pick the best fruit, prompting Rihanna to scold them for harvesting from the same trees. Suddenly, Liam hears someone crying out in pain. Rushing over, he sees a pale man attacking one of the evolved trolls. Without hesitation, he launches his power missiles at the assailant, sending him flying, though the attacker quickly rises and dashes off into the forest. Deciding not to pursue him, Liam turns to check on the injured troll. Guy is already attempting to revive it when unexpectedly, the pale man, now looking even more ghastly, lunges at Guy like a zombie. But despite the chaos, Guy manages to hold him back and restrain him. Though the man remains uncontrollably frenzied, Liam suspects that the man might be suffering from a negative status effect, so he casts a dispelling spell on him. As the spell takes hold, the man's agitation subsides, his bite wounds begin to mend, and eventually he falls into a deep, sound sleep. Observing this, Jody deduces that the man was likely bitten by a vampire, which temporarily turned him into one. Her conclusion draws ridicule from the others, who call her foolish since they insist that vampires can't emerge in the sunlight. However, Jody, armed with a wealth of knowledge beyond theirs, insists that it must have been a Dracula, a rare, mutated vampire born only once every few centuries, so potent that its influence renders other vampires immune to sunlight. Realizing that they are now up against a truly formidable foe, Liam orders everyone to gather as much intelligence as possible. Before long, a werewolf bursts into the village with dire news. He has spotted an army of 10,000 vampires about 10 kilometers away. Panic erupts as the werewolf scout reports that this horde also includes other creatures like goblins and orcs. This overwhelming evidence convinces Jody that a Dracula is indeed at the helm of the vampire army. Rihanna remarks that vampires are typically a timid and reclusive species, and it appears that this Dracula has incited them to violent behavior. The group debates whether to directly confront the vampire army, but fear soon sets in over the possibility of being bitten and transformed into vampires themselves. Deciding that immediate action is necessary, Liam orders the evacuation of all nearby villages and dispatches his subordinates to issue warnings, even though by that time, the vampires have already seized several villages. One witness recounts how an entire village of orcs was overpowered by the vampires and turned into one of them, noting that a single, exceptional vampire led the charge. All the lesser vampires bowed before him, and he even used magic to resurrect those lost in battle. Amid the growing crisis, Liam declares that he knows how to swiftly counter the vampire menace. He sends his elite servants into battle, equipping them with the elemental magic armors he designed. In the ensuing clash, Rihanna unleashes her water magic to drown the vampires, while Chris hurls explosive spells to scatter their ranks. Guy channels his earth magic to create shockwaves that fling the vampires into the air, and Asuna and Jody, armed with a sword and bow respectively, strike down their foes with swift, precise attacks. Observing the chaos from a safe distance, Liam kept a keen eye out for the arrival of the enemy leader, while his loyal servants had just managed to decimate a host of vampires before electing to retreat. But suddenly the blood particles in the air coalesce into the shape of Dracula, who immediately revives the fallen vampires with his magic. Seizing the opportunity, Liam teleports right in front of Dracula and then zaps him away to separate him from his army. Dracula is far from pleased, and Liam challenges him, asking whether he is willing to coexist with others or if he'll only be satisfied by crushing them all. Dracula scoffs, declaring that other species are inferior, and that he intends to turn them all into his servant. That answer is all the confirmation Liam needs, and he launches an assault with his power missiles. Dracula effortlessly blocks them all before materializing behind Liam to strike. Liam barely teleports away in time, then retaliates with holy lances, but even those barely faze the vampire, who dissolves into dust only to reappear completely healed. Not to be outdone, Dracula transforms into dust once more to attack, managing to catch Liam from behind. At the last second, Liam conjures an illusion spell to escape the vampire's clutches, forcing Dracula to bite at nothing but a trick. Feeling truly cornered, Liam wonders whether he should activate his golem armor for a massive power boost even though it will quickly sap his energy. He opts to save it for last, continuing to bombard Dracula with his regular magic, but nothing seems to work. The vampire boss simply turns to dust and then reconstitutes into his original form. He taunts Liam, insisting that his attacks are futile because he is already dead and can regenerate infinitely from the surrounding life force. Declaring that the fight is over, he pounces on Liam, but Liam finally finds a way to defeat him. He swiftly summons the dust box and traps Dracula inside it. No matter how hard Dracula struggles, he can't break the walls of the dust box and soon becomes frustrated. Liam muses that living beings usually can't be confined in the dust box, but since Dracula claims he is already dead, he can be placed there. Determined to test this, Liam decides to see how long Dracula can withstand an environment devoid of life force, and it takes a full 10 hours before the dust box shows any progress. At night, the dust box reports to Liam that Dracula has entered a state of suspended animation, meaning he is now basically rotten food. So Liam feels a surge of relief, thinking that he has finally won. After Dracula fell, Liam rejoined his crew and immediately asked about Dracula's minions. They reported that lately many of the subordinate creatures had been acting strangely dazed, though no one could determine the exact cause. Asuna then stepped forward and with effortless precision, shattered one of the creature's teeth during her inspection. At the same time, Jody observed that several of these monsters appeared to have lost their teeth naturally, a detail that confirmed for the group that Liam had indeed defeated the enemy leader. It seemed that once freed from Dracula's control, these beings had even improved in appearance. And with that matter addressed, Liam shifted his focus to other pressing issues. But then amid this turmoil, a violent surge of energy, what Radon identified as Dracula's mana, suddenly swept over the newly freed creatures. According to Radon, their bodies had been controlled by this pervasive mana, and with the source fading, the creatures were at risk of vanishing altogether. Desperate to avert disaster, Liam recalled how he had once cured Guy's friend with a clean sweep spell, a sacred technique known to heal any affliction. He then quickly cast the spell on one monster, and as expected, its burning mana dissipated. Encouraged, he repeated the ritual on every creature struck by the potent blue flames. But just as hope began to stir, all the monsters reverted to their previous state of agony, leaving Liam gripped by terror. Calming him, Radon reminded Liam of their earlier discussion. Sometimes one well-placed area spell is far more effective than a barrage of fireballs. Taking that advice to heart, Liam summoned Guardian Radon and donned his magical armor to channel his clean sweep spell into a powerful area effect. At last, Liam managed to purge Dracula's mana from every creature. Overjoyed, the cursed humans and demi-humans finally returned to their original forms, free from their monstrous affliction. The overwhelming relief, however, proved too much for Liam, and he fainted on the spot. Sometime later, he slowly awoke in the quiet of the night and asked how long he had been out. Asuna estimated it to be around an hour, and then Liam inquired about the others still affected by Dracula's mana, so they point out that they are saved and happily thriving now. Turning his thoughts inward, they then questioned what had become of Liam, remarking that he had been bathed in light, regenerating those on the verge of disappearing. At that moment, Chris rushes in a state of desperation to check on the master, and he explains that he's exhausted more mana than he ought to have. As Rihanna arrives, Liam instructs them to gather the vampires, specifically those that have always been vampires, not ones transformed by Dracula's influence. The officers obey his command and round up the vampires for Liam, leaving him astonished to find that, among the 10,000 troops reportedly ready for battle, only a few vampires actually remain. One vampire steps forward and pleads with Liam, asking him to spare the rest by assuming responsibility for their actions. However, Liam makes it abundantly clear that he has no intention of slaughtering anyone. After all, these creatures were under Dracula's control. In fact, Liam envisions a future where the vampires can walk in daylight and integrate into the village he's building. Otherwise, once Dracula's power fades, they would be easily obliterated by the sun. He lays down two simple conditions for them joining his community. First, they must obey everything Liam Hamilton commands. Second, they must refrain from causing internal strife. Beyond that, Liam promises not to force them into any actions. Surprised yet pleased by such minimal demands, the vampires agree to join the budding civilization in the cradle of the promised land. Seizing the opportunity, Liam sets out to enhance the familiar pact he once used just as he had refined his magical armor. He now evolves his contract spell into what he calls High Familiar. This improved spell ensures that the vampires' bodies won't vanish under sunlight. Furthermore, he decrees that the leader of the vampires shall henceforth be known as Alucard, elevating him from an ordinary vampire to a noble one with the ability to resist the sun's rays. After spending 4 days recruiting his new allies following the battle, Liam returns to check on Dracula, only to note that after 100 hours the monster's existence has entirely dissipated. Meanwhile, at his mansion, the Marquis Leonardo Berkeley sees that Dracula was defeated by a single human. Although he himself is not overly alarmed, the man monitoring the situation through a crystal ball is visibly terrified, lamenting that their plan to exploit the ensuing confusion as an excuse to deploy troops has fallen apart. Nevertheless, Leonardo insists that the focus should shift away from Dracula and instead be placed on the damn one who defeated him. Although the recordings didn't capture the exact moment the Baron defeated the monster, it was clear to everyone that this young mage was something extraordinary. Leonardo was convinced that Liam Hamilton was a force to be reckoned with, a monster in human form, capable of conjuring 19 spells simultaneously and wielding the power of a dragon. Regardless of the specifics, Leonardo ordered his subordinate to investigate this young prodigy further. As for the land itself, they decided it would be conquered later. After the servant departed, Leonardo pondered quietly to himself how, at pivotal moments in history, an eccentric figure always emerges. In this case, he couldn't decide if Liam Hamilton was a genuine hero or perhaps the Demon King. The following day, Liam was completely drained, lying on the village grass trying to rest after sealing a contract with 10,000 monsters now living in the Promised Land. One could only imagine the monumental effort it took to name each one of them. At that very moment, two slimes, Slillan and Slip-On, whom Liam had contracted as familiars, presented him with a doll they had crafted of their master. Surveying the scene, Liam felt a deep pride in the work the villagers had been doing behind the scenes, erecting building after building to transform the village into a worthy home, and even in no time it might evolve into a full-fledged city. Then we see that the skilled elves were spearheading the construction efforts after refining their abilities. And of course, nothing seems more fitting than choosing Rihanna as the organizer. Elsewhere, Guy and the other giants were tasked with defending the Promised Land, while the werewolves, known for their exceptional hunting skills, secured the food supplies. Each race had a unique role in this new society, and everything was proceeding smoothly until Guy warned that humans were approaching the village. Claiming to be merchants from Quistador, these strangers requested an audience with the king of the land. Despite their claim, Liam insisted he wasn't the king, a statement that left Guy perplexed since Liam clearly acted as the master of all the inhabitants. To settle the matter, Guy turned to the villagers and asked if anyone disagreed that Liam Radon was their rightful king. Almost instantly, the crowd erupted in enthusiastic agreement, affirming their desire to have Liam as their absolute leader. In a dramatic twist, Radon himself mysteriously appeared in mid-air and declared Liam the undisputed ruler of this land, leaving Liam both bewildered and burdened by this unexpected mantle. A few hours later, Liam visits Scarlet, who has been anxiously waiting for him. She confides that she's been scrutinizing the internal workings of the Jamel Kingdom these past few days, but so far she hasn't uncovered any concrete evidence. Still, she remains convinced that the king and his ministers are hiding something, and will not relinquish that land without a fight. The real mystery, however, lies in the fact that the princess has been unable to determine the cause of their secretiveness. Curious, Liam asks if Guardian Radon might have any insight, but the dragon remains silent. So Liam speculates that the answer may be tied to the nature of humans. Scarlet muses that it might be something so trivial that even Radon cares little for it. Yet Liam is satisfied knowing that the Jamel Kingdom will not give up its territory easily. He then asks Scarlet to accompany him on his next journey, but she prefers to continue her investigation a bit longer, with a promise to return and see the princess, who blushes at his affectionate words. Liam departs. Back in the village, Liam turns once more to Radon for guidance, insisting that Radon's silence earlier must have a purpose, as he never lies. Not long after, Radon, recognizing that Liam has grown far beyond the mindset of a mere 12-year-old, challenges him to understand what it truly means to be a guardian. Though Liam guesses it has something to do with being a protector, he admits he isn't entirely sure what exactly he is meant to protect. In response, Radon teleports Liam to a mysterious chamber adorned with archaic inscriptions. Radon instructs him to infuse the space with his mana, explaining that after his last battle, Liam's level has increased so much that his mana reserve should be more than sufficient. Following Radon's command, Liam channels his mana into the chamber, and to his astonishment, a secret passage grinds open in the floor, leading underground. Descending the stairs, Liam is overwhelmed by a sensation akin to the one he experienced when he first discovered the Magicpedia. He suspects that he has stumbled upon yet another ancient artifact of memory. Impressed by Liam's ingenuity, Radon confirms that the cryptic writings on the walls are indeed remnants of ancient memories, and that the entire chamber is akin to an artifact, a repository of forbidden long-lost spells. Curious, Liam asks if these inscriptions might contain spells. Radon explains that much like crows, which have a penchant for gathering shiny objects in their nests, dragons too hoard ancient and forbidden spells in their sanctuaries. For instance, Liam is now standing in a dragon's nest, a place where ancient and forbidden spells have been collected over the centuries, and the spell Liam sees on the wall is merely the first of many, and as he increases his mana, new seals will break, granting him access to other spells. Remarkably, Guardian Radon notes that Liam is the first human in centuries to break this initial seal. Brimming with excitement, Liam eagerly captures the spell inscribed on the wall, noting that the process mirrors how one would absorb a grimoire or consult the Magicpedia. Determined to test his newfound power, he attempts to conjure 19 spells simultaneously, but all that appears are ephemeral bubbles that vanish without a trace. Radon explains that Liam's mana is being nullified, but before he can elaborate further, Liam experiments with other spells, all failing in a similar fashion. He soon deduces that this mana cancellation is deliberately preventing anyone from using the ancient spell in this sacred place. When Radon confirms his suspicion, Liam makes another attempt. He encases himself in shimmering bubbles and dashes outside, only to have his spells cancelled once again. Undeterred, he retreats to the Radon's nest and decides to activate the old spell using a stone he'd picked up outside. However, when he hurls the stone at one of the bubbles, nothing happens. Next, he fires a magic missile at the bubble, which splits it neatly in two. At that moment, Liam realizes that physical attacks seem ineffective, and the spells are being absorbed and merely multiply the bubbles. Radon then reveals that the true challenge here is to solve the riddle and master the spell. He offers a clue: the bubbles multiply. According to Radon, Radon, a wizard of Liam's caliber should be able to activate spells simultaneously. There should be one activation line that triggers the old spell, while the other lines are used to disrupt the multiplying bubbles with precise attacks. Although this method is slow, it proves effective. However, Liam believes he can expedite the process by invoking a contract. He calls forth a clone to assist with the strategy, announcing that he'll use one activation line for the contract invocation and the remaining 18 to practice triggering the old spell. With renewed determination, he conjures the bubbles once more and begins the activation process, while his clone launches power missiles to shatter the bubbles. Radon observes with approval as this combined tactic appears to accelerate the procedure. Liam resolves to maintain the assault for an hour until the activation is complete. True to form, an hour later, his strategy succeeds, and Liam masterfully harnesses the ancient spell, leaving even Radon thoroughly impressed by how swiftly it was accomplished. Afterwards, Liam departs the nest and summons his item box, using it to drop a massive rock onto his clone. In response, the clone automatically casts the ancient spell, Shield of Absolute Strength, which not only repels the impact but is itself obliterated along with the rock, essentially, before it shatters. The shield can completely deflect one physical blow, no matter how formidable. However, if faced with multiple small projectiles, like two tiny stones, the shield only intercepts the first, leaving subsequent attacks unguarded, and it offers no protection against magical assaults. With this in mind, several clones begin pelting Liam with stones. In defense, he repeatedly conjures the Shield of Absolute Strength while continuing his spell activation, forming multiple barriers around himself, each one absorbing a separate stone. The mage muses that his experiment now resembles a war scenario. Imagine thousands of arrows raining down, and that if attacks become too rapid, this method might eventually prove insufficient. Nonetheless, he is confident he can manage as his mana reserves continue to grow. Finally, Radon announces that an absolute magic shield has been sealed on the next floor, meaning Liam must level up if he wants to access that area. Yet, recalling that the artifact was originally crafted by Radon himself, Liam believes he might shatter the seal immediately by substituting raw physical strength with potent magic. With that idea in mind, he envisions channeling every available spell line to activate a single, powerful effect, planning to mentally simulate the process until he can correct any errors. After all, Radon had mentioned that manipulating causality was key. After meticulously calculating each step in his mind, Liam finally manages to awaken the absolute magic shield. So impressive is his feat that even Radon metaphorically tips his hat in respect, acknowledging that Liam has mastered one of the most challenging ancient spells in a remarkably straightforward manner. Elated by his breakthrough, Liam conjures 19 power missiles and continuously activates the absolute magic shield to ensure that everything operates smoothly. As he practices, Radon reflects on the fact that no human has undone the seals of those ancient ruins in centuries. But Liam Hamilton not only shattered them, but also activated a long-forgotten spell in his own unique way. Later, while standing beside a shadow spirit, Liam is seen behaving curiously, prompting Radon to ask what he's up to. The young mage explains that he's training his sense of smell to detect mana presence. Radon surmises that this ability would enable him to effectively deploy both physical and magical barriers, and Liam confirms that, though he wonders if combining both types wouldn't sometimes be more efficient. Liam elaborates that while not impossible, he's striving for a method that is more efficient, one that consumes less mana. Radon considers this feasible, provided Liam can anticipate an opponent's move in a split second. Regardless, Radon offers high praise for Liam's relentless drive to evolve and push the boundaries of magic. A few days later, while Liam was going about his routine, Asuna burst in with an urgent message from Guy, who insisted on seeing him immediately. Without delay, Liam teleported to Guy's location, where he found several knights standing guard in front of a group of trolls. As Guy approached, he explained that these knights were representatives from the kingdom of Palta, and they had an important matter to discuss with Liam. At that moment, the knights' leader stepped forward and introduced himself as X-Blast. When Liam inquired inquired about the nature of their urgent business. Blast revealed that the king of Palta had ordered him to arrange a marriage between Liam and his daughter Flora to secure stronger ties with their nation. Taken aback, Liam listened as Blast then brought up his supposed engagement with Princess Scarlet of the Jamal Kingdom. Liam explained that no engagement was planned for this year because there was still much work to be done, which only emboldened Blast. He declared that their country would not tolerate any delay in the engagement, and on cue, Princess Flora, a striking blue-haired beauty, stepped out of her carriage, leaving Liam, the self-proclaimed little pervert, utterly speechless. Blast then offered that if Liam wished, he could leave Flora in his care immediately. Shocked by the leader's desperation, Liam insisted that they first discuss some fundamental details and invited the knights to join him at his village. Blast accepted the offer without hesitation, but before any further discussion could take place, Liam sensed imminent danger. He quickly activated his absolute magic shield, and in the very next instant, a ferocious fire spell hurtled toward him. The spell exploded with tremendous force, knocking everyone in its blast radius unconscious, yet Liam managed to shield Princess Flora from harm. Perplexed by the sudden attack, Liam demanded an explanation. Radon then informed him that the oncoming assault was from a suicide bomber spirit, an artificially created monster known for its overwhelming destructive power. Radon added grimly that the creature had specifically targeted Flora, and if Liam had been even a second slower, she would have been incinerated. Liam is stunned by the revelation and immediately demands to know who could be behind such a treacherous act. Scanning the area, he finds that Blast has vanished without a trace, leaving him to wonder if Blast himself orchestrated the attack. Radon confirms his suspicions, remarking that such nobles are depraved and will stop at nothing to further their ambitions. Intrigued and enraged, Liam orders Guy to ensure Flora and the soldiers remain safe while he seeks answers. He teleports to Scarlet's palace and brings her to the explosion site, where Flora lies unconscious. There, Liam explains everything to Scarlet about Flora, and to his confusion, Scarlet reveals that no neighboring country has any princess by that name. Confused, Liam provides all the details about the man named Blast, who claimed that Flora was a princess from Palta, so she tells him that she's heard of Blast, and he is Palta's ruthless right-hand man who handles all the dirty work. And when Liam mentions the suicide bomber spirit, Scarlet pieces together the puzzle, and says that Palta had intended to send a faux princess to marry Liam, only to have her killed immediately upon arrival as a pretext to spark a war. Scarlet then examines Flora, and she discovers a mole on her chest, reinforcing her suspicion that Flora is actually a clandestine child of a high-ranking noble, sent here as a sacrificial pawn. Before long, Flora awakens, and the unabashed Liam boldly declares that he expects gratitude for saving her life. Terrified, Flora pleads with him to back off, insisting that she is dangerous to him. She reveals a curse mark on her hand, confessing that even if he can shield her from external threats, she is doomed to perish. She begs him to leave her be, to spare him from the burden of her cursed existence. Unwilling to let her suffer alone, Liam grabs her hand and, channeling his holy magic, neutralizes the curse. He then asks if there are any other afflictions or traps on her body that he must remove. Flora, still in disbelief that the curse has been lifted, listens as Scarlet proudly boasts about Liam's ability to erase even the most insidious curses with his sacred power. Curious, Liam inquires about the nature of the curse, and Flora explains that it would have transformed her into a monster, forcing her to obey every command of whoever had cast it. Radon suddenly realizes that a dark magical artifact was employed on her, and he suspects it is the very same item that was used to create Dracula, which ultimately provoked the assault on their village. Infuriated by this revelation, Liam swallows his anger and turns his focus to Flora. He tells her that since she has nowhere else to go, she should remain with them, and he vows that the Palta kingdom will never harm her again. Later, in a more private setting, Liam and Scarlet engage in a candid conversation. Scarlet confides that all three neighboring countries in the region have long looked down on him, and that to silence their criticisms, he must demonstrate his power. When Liam asks if he should provoke a confrontation, Scarlet proposes a far more strategic idea. He needs to issue his own currency. She shows him 3 variations of the silver coins used in her homeland, pointing out that while the original is meticulously detailed, the copies distributed to the public lack those fine details. Liam grasps her meaning. By creating coins with a uniformly high level of detail for general use, he can prove that his technology is far superior to that of his rivals. Enthused by the idea, Liam immediately summons fire and earth spirits to forge his first batch of silver coins. Next, he decides to craft copper coins. Scarlet suggests that he add tin to copper, producing bronze coins instead, arguing that a blend with 70% copper yields greater detail. To her surprise, Liam opts to make coins with just 50% copper. Not long after, Asuna and Jody visit a merchant guild in their city to present Liam's newly issued silver coin. The guild manager is astounded because he can hardly believe that such high-quality coins are intended for widespread circulation. Then, when he examines the copper coins, he is even more speechless, as no one in the world has managed to craft such intricate coins using only 50% copper. Intrigued, the girls ask him about the exchange rate of these coins, and he reveals that if all coins are maintained at the same high quality, their value could be up to 3 times that of the currency currently used in the Jamel Kingdom. Meanwhile, we see that Liam receives a letter from his eldest brother Albrecht, whose tone drips with arrogance as he demands a meeting to discuss matters of their country. When Scarlet reads the letter, she erupts in anger at Albrecht's audacity, insisting that Liam need not respond since Albrecht holds no real authority or position within the family. Agreeing with her, Liam decides to ignore Albrecht and instead extends an invitation to his brother Bruno, whom he truly respects, to visit his domain. Bruno is taken aback by how advanced Liam's country has become and formally requests that their family establish business relations with it. Although Liam is initially surprised by this proposal, he consents because Bruno's request appears sincere. But before finalizing the deal, Liam reaches out to Scarlet telepathically for advice. She advises him to treat Bruno with kindness regarding taxes and business regulations, but to be stern with Albrecht if he ever appears, demonstrating that while he values his friends, he won't tolerate any disrespect. Satisfied with the counsel, Liam finalizes the business arrangement with Bruno and later retreats into his pocket dimension. In his private training, Radon comments that leveraging currency to assert dominance is clever, but it only works on the perceptive people. He worries that unintelligent invaders might keep trying to overrun Liam's territory, and Liam needs to train to fight them off. So Liam begins contemplating how to improve his combat prowess, acknowledging that magic alone has its limit. Radon suggests that Liam can use his magical energy to fortify his body. Though Liam initially struggles to grasp the concept, Radon then demonstrates by channeling his mana throughout his body, and with a sudden flash, he appears before Liam as a diminutive little rude girl. Startled by this unexpected transformation, Liam watches as the lowly dragon circulates his magic through his limbs, leaping effortlessly around the room. Inspired, Liam tries to replicate the technique. He concentrates his mana into his legs and attempts a high jump, but he cannot sustain the form for long and ends up crashing down. Radon is impressed by how quickly Liam adapts. Even though he still has much to learn, he then conjures several magic-absorbing bubbles around Liam's head, hands, and feet, instructing him to fill each with varying amounts of mana to hone his control. Although Liam initially fumbles with the process, he perseveres, training tirelessly until he can seamlessly circulate his magical power throughout his body. After Liam became proficient in channeling mana through his body, Radon announced that it was time to move forward with the training. In an unexpected move, the dragon momentarily fused with Liam before separating again, refining an essential aspect needed for the next phase of their training. Without warning, Radon conjured a rope fashioned entirely of light from his palm and announced that they were to engage in a tug-of-war challenge. When instructed to pull the rope, Liam tugged with all his might, yet the rope remained stubbornly immobile. Radon explained that to set it in motion, Liam needed to infuse additional mana into his hand. Instantly, Liam channels about 10% of his mana into his grip, managing to budge the rope ever so slightly. In response, Radon mirrors the move. Realizing the lesson, Liam deduces that the purpose of the exercise is to measure the mana expenditure required to fortify oneself and then adjust his own output accordingly, and Radon tells Liam that he is right. Focusing intently on the glowing mana coursing through the rope, he fine-tunes his control to match Radon's flow. Suddenly, Radon shifts tactics, channeling his mana into the open air rather than the rope, making it far more elusive to detect. Although Liam struggles to keep pace, he persists until the end, at which point Radon announces that he has passed the second round of training. For the final challenge, the dragon commands Liam to unleash as many magic missiles as he can at once, expecting to fire his standard 19. Liam surprises himself by launching 29 missiles in a single burst, even though his overall mana capacity remains unchanged. With a smug smile, Radon explains that by refining his sensory perception and mana control, Liam has effectively optimized his spellcasting efficiency. Overjoyed by this revelation, Liam realizes that he now possesses the refined skills needed to wield his immense power with precision. The following day, Liam convenes a meeting with his key underlings at Scarlet's mansion. During the discussion, Rihanna points out that they are running low on salt and drinking water. Liam assures her that he will replenish their supplies. This prompts Asuna to wonder aloud how he manages to procure these resources in the first place. Liam explains that he simply dispatches a clone to the sea, then uses his item box to separate the salt from the water. The girls, however, feel that there must be a more efficient method. After all, as their leader, Liam shouldn't be burdened with such menial tasks. He says that he will think about it when Scarlet rises from her seat and asks Radon whether there are any saltwater lakes or similar places nearby where they might mine salt near the promised land. Radon now fully embraces the lowly lifestyle even when he is inside Liam, and tells Scarlet that there might be a promising source of salt to the southwest of the city. After all, wild cattle and sheep are known to graze there, although the others are puzzled about the connection. Scarlet quickly explains that these animals have an insatiable habit of licking rock salt. They agree to investigate the area later, wrapping up the meeting on that note. As the group leaves the room, Asuna wistfully suggests that if their kingdom had an ocean, their salt problem would be solved once and for all. Scarlet chimes in with an intriguing historical tidbit. Long ago, this region was once washed by an ocean until, during the War of the Three Dragons, Radon hurled a mountain that severed the ocean from the promised land. Liam is stunned by the sheer scale of power that the dragon within Radon possesses. Later, he turns to the lowly Radon and asks if he can lend him some of that power to create an ocean in his territory. Radon, however, refuses, advising him to make do with what he already has. Undeterred, Liam sets to work and creates a small saltwater lake complete with a sandy beach. He explains that this miniature ocean is connected to the real one through his item box, ensuring it will never run dry. The girls are immediately thrilled by this innovation. Seizing the opportunity, Asuna and Scarlet conspire to persuade Liam to let them swim in the pool. Liam, who secretly enjoys the thought of seeing them in their swimsuits, happily agrees, and they spend the entire day frolicking in the water. The following day, as Liam drops Scarlet off at her home, she receives a troubling message about a severe drought in her mother's homeland. Liam reassures her that if water is scarce, he can easily supply it. When Scarlet hesitates and asks if he's truly confident about this plan, Liam explains that offering water will not only help but also forge a stronger bond with her country. After all, it's his duty to support his neighbors, and true to his generous nature, he refuses to charge for the water. Energized by the offer, Scarlet rushes off to inform her father. Back in his territory, Liam directs his water spirits to get to work, filling barrels with clean, drinkable water. As the spirits busily fill the containers, Radon suddenly warns Liam that all his benevolent efforts might ultimately prove futile. Puzzled, Liam asks for clarification, and Radon explains in a caustic tone that both ordinary people and the powerful are often stupid and arrogant. She believes that his free acts of charity will only breed suspicion, as people might think he has ulterior motives. Unfortunately, her prediction soon comes true. Scarlet later informs informs Liam that her father has turned down his offer, insisting that his country is fully capable of handling the drought on its own. According to Scarlet, they are currently dispatching relief packages to the worst-hit areas, but they simply cannot teleport water on the scale that Liam could. In a sudden burst of inspiration, Radon suggests they could end the dry spell by inducing rain over the region, and Liam gets curious about that idea, and she mentions that among the most advanced holy magic spells, there exists one to control the weather. Liam is thrilled at the prospect but quickly realizes that he's not quite ready to wield such power. Moreover, he worries that if he tries to assist the kingdom with unapproved magic, it might offend them, so he opts for a more diplomatic, measured approach instead. Before long, Liam meets with his brother Bruno to present a new plan. Given that Bruno is a low-ranking noble, Liam figures that providing relief to disaster-struck regions would not only be a humanitarian act, but also a significant achievement that could bolster Bruno's standing. According to the plan, Liam would use his item box to teleport water to the areas in need, and Bruno would handle the official distribution. Bruno is enthusiastic, but asks for a few days to work out the logistics and costs associated with water and transportation. Liam, however, dismisses the need for profit because he's doing this out of genuine concern, not greed. While Bruno is pleased with the arrangement, the king of the Jamel kingdom isn't, and sends a group of nobles to Liam's residence to prepare for his impending marriage with Scarlet. Radon is convinced that the elaborate marriage preparations are merely a pretext, an excuse by the king to keep a close watch on Liam and prevent him from aiding the drought-stricken regions. In response, Liam muses that he could simply send one of his clones out to the affected areas so that he can teleport there later. However, just then Guy bursts in with news. People from the Jamel kingdom are scouring the area, ostensibly to determine the perfect route for Scarlet's wedding procession. Realizing that his clone would now be exposed, Liam instructs Guy to monitor the Jamilian entourage and ensure they don't cause any mischief. Determined to outsmart the prying eyes, Liam decides to alter the appearance of his clone to avoid detection. He summons a clone and casts wind magic to give it a trendy faded hairstyle, but soon realizes that this unusual cut might actually raise more suspicion. Frustrated, he dismisses that clone and then ties his own hair up neatly, then summons another clone, which naturally mirrors his current look. It dawns on him that his clones always replicate his most recent appearance, effectively resetting any previous modification. Seizing this quirk, Liam comes up with a clever idea. He employs the High Familiar Contract spell to perform a gender bend on his clone, transforming it into an attractive hot girl. He names the transformed clone Amelia and verifies that she can wield magic just like he does before sending her off to handle his affairs in his stead. Over time, Liam notices how interactions with outsiders have rejuvenated the kingdom, with its currency now circulating widely. A knowing smile forms as he reflects on Bruno's instrumental role. The long-awaited trade with neighboring merchants has finally commenced. Strategically positioned at the junction of three nations, this land is steadily evolving into a bustling center of commerce. Meanwhile, the region of Jamel is suffering from a severe drought. Despite Liam's generous offer to help, his aid was rejected, so instead he sent his illusionary double disguised as Amelia to the region. Liam notices that everyone is scrutinizing his every move, ensuring he doesn't send any more aid there. Not wanting to stir up further trouble, he decides to remain in his own territory. Suddenly, a group of playful slimes appears, lightening the mood as they eagerly approach him. The scene then cuts to a group of workers diligently carrying stones. Liam, filled with admiration for their hard work, summons a group of gnomes and orders them to dig a trench along the road. It becomes clear that he is planning to build a new city road or a smooth sidewalk for carriages. The lowly dragon explains the process to him, stating that the black soil must be heated until it melts, then poured onto the road and left to solidify. Excited by the prospect of creating something lasting, Liam eagerly digs a trench about a meter deep, and the dragon confirms that this depth is ideal. He remarks that the victory road used by triumphant armies to march to the palace is an impressive achievement, and his construction is just as significant. Once the workers have gathered the black soil, Liam orders them to fill the trench with it. He then summons a group of salamanders to melt the soil until it liquefies. As the molten soil cools, it hardens into a perfectly smooth surface. and everyone watching is both amazed and thrilled by the result. Not content with just that, Liam decides to expand the roads leading out of the city. He envisions that when visitors arrive, they should find a well-paved path free of obstacles, a critical link connecting cities and nations. After the initial paving is completed, Liam lies down on the road, seemingly inspecting it or searching for a flaw. He then orders the salamanders to melt the top 10 centimeters of the surface, and next he commands the gnomes to adjust the road so that its center is slightly elevated. To test his plan, he pours water onto the road, and his idea works perfectly because the water no longer pools in the middle. Satisfied with the outcome, Liam resolves to implement these improvements on all roads throughout the kingdom. After a while, Liam settles down in the forest for a moment of respite, tying a rope around a sturdy tree and leaning on it. Almost immediately, he loses his balance first once, then a second time. After he got used to it, the lowly dragon spoke directly into his mind and said that things seem to have gotten a bit easier now, but you must have noticed something different. Liam gets perplexed and asks what she means, but he suddenly notices that there's a subtle shift in the supernatural energies, and it's differences that he couldn't sense before. Intrigued, Liam performs a thorough scan of the surrounding area and soon discovers that spies from all three neighboring nations, Palta, Quistador, and Jamal, have infiltrated his territory. Realizing that these countries are closely monitoring him, Liam concludes that their animosity towards him is far more significant than he initially suspected. He quickly rushes to Scarlet and asks for details about the military might of Jamal, Palta, and Quistador, including the size of their armies. She informs him that if they were on guard from each other, both Jamal and Palta can muster around 20,000 troops each, while Quistador could deploy up to 50,000 soldiers. But if they were to unite against him, their combined forces would total approximately 130,000 warriors, and it's a staggering number compared to his own populace of barely 10,000, including civilians. Deep in thought, Liam realizes that he must act with extreme wisdom and caution to avoid being dragged into war. He ponders not only the threat posed by these three nations, but also the possibility that other countries across the continent may have sent spies as well. Determined to verify his suspicions, Liam reactivates his scanning power and soon orders his workers to retreat immediately. He summons a squad of gnomes and commands them to dig straight down. In no time, they excavated a massive pit. As Liam leaps into the chasm, he is astonished to discover a thin but gleaming layer of mithril, a rare mineral known for its magical properties. Overwhelmed with excitement, he exclaims that the mysterious magical energy he has been sensing originates from here, and he says that with such a bounty of mithril, he envisions crafting enchanted battle armor for everyone, and it's a development that could finally bridge the overwhelming power gap between his people and those of the other nations. Without wasting any time, Liam calls for Scarlet and instructs her to spread the news immediately, and let it be known that our nation now possesses mithril ore, because this will serve as a clear deterrent to any potential invaders. And with that declaration, Liam halts all road construction and diverts the workforce to extract the newly discovered mithril. The quantities unearthed are astonishing enough to forge thousands of magical battle armors. As he surveys the operation, Liam muses that they need to build something akin to that underground temple. The ancient ruins beneath where Guardian Radon once stood were actually used as a vast storage device. So if they construct a similar structure and train everyone together, they might achieve something truly incredible. Turning to Riene, he asks her if she can use any supernatural abilities, and she confirms that she can use ice magic. So in an instant, Liam and Rihanna teleport to a new location, and there Liam commands the salamanders to melt the surface of the road along with a thin layer of mithril, while instructing the gnomes to remove the top layer of the road and coat it with an even, thin film of mithril. Noticing Rihanna's puzzled look, Liam tells her that he will explain everything, but just stand over there, and as she complies, he asks if she feels anything. Then suddenly a massive surge of mana and energy courses through her body, and she quickly casts the Ice Needle spell, and to her astonishment, it works with incredible efficiency. So she asks about what happened because her power has increased drastically. So Liam smiles and says that he used his abilities to transform the mithril in the road into an ancient storage device, placing it beneath the city streets, and adds that instead of constructing a dedicated training structure, now anyone who stands on the roads can learn spells. But then he noticed that this also means they will have to rebuild all the damn roads again. Later, Liam convenes everyone for a training session. The trainees unleash a barrage of fireballs at him, yet he effortlessly deflects them with his superior shield. Next, they try launching ice needles, but he parries those as well. Even when the slimes whip up a violent wind cyclone, Liam stands firm. The secret to his resilience lies in the ancient storage devices he embedded beneath the city's roads, which now serve as an immense energy source. With this setup, anyone standing on these roads can tap into that power. Even those with little to no magical training can help defend the city. But he says that this is not all, so Rihanna in awe asks if there's more, and with a confident grin, Liam replies that with him she is going to witness the impossible. He then tells her to stand over the road again and tries to cast the phone spell. Rihanna then gets intrigued and quickly positions herself and utters the spell's name, and to her astonishment, it activates instantly. The phone spell is a telepathic communication incantation that allows her to speak to someone else solely through her thoughts. Even though she's never attempted it before, she casts it effortlessly. The spell transmits her natural voice across vast distances, linking everyone in the city to Liam's network. To test it out, she contacts Natasha and hears a clear response, even though Natasha is nowhere near. The spell's success leaves everyone ecstatic as they marvel at the remarkable progress of the city that Liam has built. Enchanted by the progress, Rihanna calls it the Magic City, and Liam is delighted by that name. That concludes this episode. Thank you for watching. If you want to see the next part, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell.